All right, everybody, welcome in back to the Matchup Report. I'm your host, as always, Tyler Blankshow. My co-host, Jason Nieves. We are ready to talk about some playoff football, man. I'm ready to go straight into it. It was an interesting Week 18 for us to review, that's for sure. Some odd games and scenarios that ended up popping up, but definitely excited to talk about, kind of review the season as it was as a whole for the regular season, and then we can talk about and set up the playoffs as we start that this weekend. And it should be this is probably one of the more interesting NFL playoffs we've gotten in several years. I feel like, which is nice because we talked about like the NBA playoffs last year being like really fun and interesting one, and now we get the NFL playoffs after that, really fun and interesting. So good time to be a sports fan, I think. Okay, honestly, let's just jump straight into it, man. I want to talk about Week 18 and everything that happened on. So we put as our game of the week like all of the playoff implication games, basically. So I mean, we can just kind of go in order of how they happened if you want to start that way. And that would mean we have to start with the Panthers and the Buccaneers, which ended up. So the Buccaneers win 16-14. It was a game where it looked like neither team realized that like whoever won could like have like I don't know. It's like as if the playoffs weren't even on the line for either team. The Buccaneers win 16-14, like I said, which means both teams end up finishing the season 8-9. And then this game came down to like, okay, who wins the Saints and Falcons game now? So then they all had to root for their own teams, and that became a bunch of fun like social interactions, like online, especially between like all the players for the different teams. That was cool. But for the game, like the Buccaneers got off to like a quick like 10-0 lead, and then the Panthers kind of fought back. I think it was like 13-7 at halftime. And
Yeah.
then it was just got real stagnant after that. Like obviously the Panthers got one more touchdown, the Buccaneers only scored one field goal in the second half, and it was just I don't know, both teams were just too stagnant to get anything really going, to anything consistent. And I mean the Buccaneers were able to like kind of eke it out in the end in what was a weird game, but I don't know. I walk away from this game kind of thinking like I don't know, like I would still rather see the Panthers in the playoffs, and they are now in the playoffs. We'll talk about how that happened, but I kind of walked away saying like I don't know if I want like are these are really actual playoff teams, which is an indictment on that division as a whole. But
Yeah.
someone's got to go.
Yeah. So, and it's crazy that you look at the standings of the NFC South, and there were three teams that finished 8-9, and it was like, all right, like this division is just, and I think for like years, I think we've always looked at the NFC South. I feel like it changes every year. Like, hell, NFC East was called the NFC least at one point. Like, and to be fair, there was the
There were
tumultuous
some
time.
down years.
Yeah, there were some years where I was like, all right, I could understand it. I can take the banner. But like I feel like if there's one division where it's like there's been a team that like you can't consistently count on to like deliver a solid playoff contender. I think the NFC South like would be it. Like each team has had their moments. Don't get me wrong. Like Tampa Bay won the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, but like Carolina had the Cam Newton years, lost in the Super Bowl. Atlanta had Matt Ryan MVP and lost in the Super Bowl. Like those are all in the past like 10 to 15 years. So this since then, like obviously there's those bright spots, but like otherwise the division is just like all right, like who's making it to playoffs? Maybe you win a game or two if you're lucky, and then you're out of the playoffs. And this more than anything felt like, and yet we talked about this is that the Bucks, like for them, this season is a disappointment. For
Hmm.
the Panthers, you look at this and it's like, all right, like yes, we were inconsistent, but we're ahead of schedule, and we're definitely like a much better place than what we thought we would have at the start of the season, considering everything you were going in, where you had Bryce Young being benched last year, you were having so many moving pieces, and it's like, all right, like you need to figure out a lot, but like you're hoping for a lot of players to progress, and I think we saw a lot from them, like as a whole. And yes, it's exciting to see them in the playoffs, but it's clearly still a you're not ready moment. But yeah, this the game. Speaking on the game in general, it was just like it was just sloppy, and I think even and it was funny that like I kept seeing all the tweets and stuff, and they were like even the weather does just like just doesn't want this game to actually like it everything is muddy, murky about
It
this
was
from
pouring rain.
from the weather to just the play, and the Panther. I mean, the Bucks just did enough to win, but then we go to the Saints Falcons, which really it's funny that the Buccaneers win, and you're like, well, technically they're not champions yet. Like they still have to like they need the Falcons to lose, and then the Falcons beat the Saints, and the Panthers get it. So it, it yeah. I'm excited to see the Panthers end. Would I have preferred them to see them win, and really kind of solidify and say like, all right, like, this is our division? Yes. But I don't think they're complaining much. They weren't expecting to be here, and they're in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and now, which we'll talk about their first round matchup later, but it makes for an interesting first round matchup that they'll have. I just and yeah, look, maybe the rain was a part of it, but I feel like the Panthers, like their run game was going really well, especially like during the halfway point of the season. It's kind of slowed down the past few weeks, so and maybe that may look the field condition was obviously terrible, so you're not like that specific this last specific game. But I would like to see them going into the playoffs go back to more of what we were seeing them like do well early in the season, which was like run the ball really well, prevent explosive plays on defense, cause some turnovers, and just you know be aggressive enough on offense where you're able to convert those fourth downs that where we saw them do a lot during the season, where it was like, hey, we're in the fourth quarter in these tight situations, we just need Bryce Young to make a throw to whether it be T Mac or Coker or whoever it was, and they were able to win some games that way. But I mean, that's all. That's also winning by like the margins, like slightly. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of their games seem to be close, unless you're outdoing the Falcons 30-0. But I just I don't know. I'm with you. It's like I would have liked to have seen like one of these teams win and go into the playoffs with like a little bit of momentum, a little bit more confidence of like, okay, like we can see why this team could maybe do something. The Panthers, I still believe in at this point a little bit more than the Bucks because the Bucks have their own problems, kind of like coach down. It feels like if not, even, yeah, I would say coach down. So because I do like their GM, but the Panthers are just kind of like more of that young up and coming team where it's like, you know, we want to make some noise if we make the playoffs. Cool. If we don't, also like, hey, well, at least we have something positive to work on. But yeah, I saw. Congrats to the Panthers, I guess. Your first round matchup is an interesting one, but I mean, we'll see what happens. It was a good rookie season for T Mac. It was also a good rookie season for Ibuka. So two really fun receivers that'll be in that division for I feel like a while. And the Bucks have an interesting offseason ahead of them, where they had a great start to the season, but it ends in kind of unceremonious fashion. But we'll talk a
Yeah.
little bit more of that later.
Real quick on the Panthers, and just like we talk about the inconsistencies of the season, and from week 7 on to last week 17, 10 straight weeks they hadn't won a game, hadn't won 2 games in a row, or hadn't lost 2 games in a row. So they were alternating wins and losses for 10 weeks. And I think that is like it's a summary really of this team as a whole, where it's like they every step in the right direction is a step back. But at the same time, when you compare it to the Bucks, who have been battling tons of injuries and still can't get it together, you're like, all right, like maybe we don't have it as bad as they do.
That's true. True. All right. Hey, man. It would. I can't wait to talk about that first matchup. Okay, let's go. Let's move on to Seahawks and Niners. Another kind of. I don't know if I want to call it a weird game, but kind of like a surprising
No,
game.
it was weird.
Okay, yeah, it was weird. Yeah, I was like, I don't know how to describe, but yeah. So the Seahawks went 13-3, and the three part is what was most surprising about this. Like we've talked all year about how good the Seahawks defense is. We had high expectations coming into the season, and I think they've matched those expectations, not even gone beyond it at times. But holding your 49ers team to 3 points is an achievement on its own, man. I mean, this has been like we talked about the 49ers before the Eagles game, how they hadn't punted the ball basically all December until they played the Eagles. And it was like, damn, like their offense is rolling. CMC was on his way to having his second 1,000 yard rushing and 1,000 yard receiving year. He was just shy of it this year, and everything was going through him. He's been amazing this entire season, kind of like been the main steady force for them. And I mean, the Seahawks just shut everything down. They didn't allow Brock Purdy to complete one deep pass this entire game. Everything was underneath like 10 yards, basically. It was, we're not going to let you get over us. And when you do throw it under, we're just going to like, they are the Seahawks are like, and the Texans are like the perfect team of like see ball, get ball. Like they gang tackle, they get to the ball. They're not allowing you to get those extra yards, which actually was kind of almost like an Achilles heel for them at the beginning of the season, where it was, like they were good in coverage. They could get after the quarterback, but at times they weren't the best when it came to yards after catch and when going against these other offenses. And now you're able to do it against the Niners, and he's going to do it against some other teams as well later in the season. So now we're talking about this team and the Houston Texans like competing for that, like who is the number one defense in this league. And I mean, dude, they're so good. I will say I'm walking away at the end of the season from the Seahawks offense. Well, not the end of their season, but I'm kind of going into the playoffs thinking I'm still a little nervous about the Seahawks offense.
I'm
I
right
know,
there
and
with you.
look, the Seahawks come up. This was a big game for them, right? We talked about it going into this week that the Seahawks now, because they won this game, they're at the 1 seed. They get the bye, so they get the luxury of having some rest and get to figure some things out before they know who their next matchup is. But so that's obviously huge for them. But look, and the the turnovers were kind of coming up a little bit more this second half of the season, especially like this last month for Sam Darnold and them. And like against, we know it was really impressive the Seahawks were able to hold this like explosive and really good 49ers offense to 3 points, but it's also kind of concerning that you're only able to get 13 points on this 49ers defense, which has not been great. Like that's, they've been one of the worst defenses in the league all year, largely in part because of injuries, but the fact remains that they're not a great defense, and you were only able to get 13 points on them when you were one of the more explosive offenses for at least a majority of this season with Darnold, JSN, and like a run game that wasn't fantastic, but that at least was physical and could wear your team down. And then so now you're at the last point of the season in a game that matters, and you won it, but you're also only able to put 13 points on a bad defense. And if there's one thing we can look at this playoffs is there's a lot of good defenses, so that worries me a little bit.
Yeah, and what I'll say is that it's a double-edged sword because at the same time you don't need Sam Darnold to go out there and throw 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like he was 20 for 26, 198 yards, 0 touchdowns, but 0 interceptions. And I think they look at that and say, well, he took care of the ball. He didn't turn it over like in a negative way. Kenneth Walker had 97 rushing yards. Zach Charbonnet had 74 rushing yards. Like you got what you needed to from the offense. At the same time, no. And as an Eagles fan, at what point, do you say like, all right, like we still need to see that like, look, 13-3 is like, you're like, all right, that's I'd say not a comfortable win, but it's like it's a win where it's like you leave and you go, all right, like it's a win. I think if you get one more touchdown, you can feel a bit more confident about this win and say like, all right, like our offense we're confident in our offense going into the playoffs. We're confident in Sam Darnold going into the playoffs. And I think the fact that it was like, all right, like you got a good win, and it's a good win, and you're the number one seed, but I still do like think about the offense and say, will it be able to hold its weight when we get to playoff time? We're seeing the great defenses in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I don't want to completely take away like what Sam Darnold has done. I mean, he's what he did for the Vikings last year, and then what he did for the Seahawks this year are both very impressive. And I'm guessing the Vikings might still be like think about like, man, maybe we should have kept Sam Darnold. But I mean, according to like, he's the first quarterback since Tom Brady. He's the only quarterback besides Tom Brady to win at least 14 games in consecutive history with two different teams. So, I mean, pretty impressive. Or no, it just let me see. It's not even the different teams thing. It's just two in a row. So hey, shout out Sam Darnold. He did it for two different teams, but still, this was the same thing with last year, right? Where we're like, okay, yeah, he's having a good regular season, things are looking fine, but then when you get to the playoffs, like, what are we going to see out of you? And last year it wasn't great. So can he redeem himself this year with the Seahawks team that I do think is better set up, like top down, than the Vikings were last year at least. And I think they give him a better chance this year, especially with that defense. Like the Vikings defense was really good under Brian Flores, but I do think this defense is better than what he had with the Vikings. So he has a better supporting cast around him on that end, at least. I'm not going to disrespect Justin Jefferson like that,
Yeah.
but yeah. But talking about his receiver JSN, I mean, he had a fantastic kind of like historic season in his own right. So as long as you have those guys and those pieces, I do think the Seahawks team definitely has one of the better cases for a contender in that conference than a lot of the others. And I mean, they're the 1 seeds. So that's not like anything crazy to say, but there are still like a lot of we're going to be talking about all these playoff teams, and there's not one team that you can look at and say like, okay, like I have full confidence on them, like on all these sides of the ball. That like the Seahawks, right? We're worried about their offense a little bit going into the postseason.
Yeah, and look, I think this is going to be crazy to say with what I'm going to follow it up with is that I think Seattle has the most well-rounded team going into the playoffs. And yes, you could say like on paper there's a lot of well-rounded teams. Hell, the Eagles are really well-rounded on paper. But
Well,
I think the thing that holds it back in a lot of these teams, once again, as an Eagles fan, I understand execution. And I think it'll be really interesting to see how teams execute and operate in the playoffs.
yeah, yeah. All right, move on to the next game. I was going to jump straight to the Steelers Ravens. Did you want to talk about some of the other games before we move on to that?
No, because I think Steelers Ravens was what we thought Seahawks 49ers was going to be.
Kinda, yeah. Just coming down to the last minute there, it's kind of exciting moments.
I saw a lot of crap, like directed towards the NFL, saying why are you putting Steelers Ravens on Sunday Night Football, like the number one seed, is on the line for the NFC, like that would be a much more entertaining game. And I want y'all to apologize to the NFL just this one time. They mess up a lot of stuff, but
Well,
just
okay, I will say it wasn't until the fourth quarter of this game where you could be like, okay, like
yeah.
NFL, like good pick. But I mean, it still matters. But yeah, because the fourth quarter of this game was nuts.
Okay, yes. Let's jump to that. Okay. Steelers win 26-24. And okay, I'll take us through the game. Ravens, great opening, get a touchdown, and really looked good. I think like that was the thing is that they were talking about like for both sides of or both teams, if it, like this it felt like a heavyweight matchup coming into this because like obviously we know the history of the AFC North and how their games get down, but also you have Lamar Jackson coming back for the Ravens, you have TJ Watt coming back for the Steelers, and it's like all right, like everyone's going all in, like putting all their chips like on the table. Like we're going to see how this thing kind of operates. And they were talking about like, all right, like you need to stop Derrick Henry. Like what better way than to get your All Pro, Defense Player of the Year, perennial candidate, on the field. That didn't really matter. Derrick Henry still had 126 yards. But that is exactly what they needed to do. Like was try to run the ball, try to kind of muddy this game up. And I think the Steelers, we knew coming into this game what their weaknesses were, and that's the passing offense. You don't have a DK Metcalf, who is now going to return for them in the playoffs. But you didn't have a DK Metcalf, and you were really kind of relying on really anybody in your receiving core. Kenneth Gainwell led them as a pass catcher with 64 yards for them. Calvin Austin was second with 55 yards, but it's crazy, and especially like you saw in crucial moments when the Steelers are down in the red zone, and the commentators were like, well. Looking at the Steelers, I mean, there's only one other person you throw to, and it's Pat Fryermuth. Like he's probably your best option down there, and even then, like you're looking and saying, like I don't know, like if that's who you're trying to put all your cards on in big significant moments, like it gets a little scary. But yes, this game heats up in the fourth quarter, third and fourth quarter. So it was 10-3 going into half. Steelers scored 10 in the third quarter, and then both teams scored 13 or more in the fourth quarter. And really, just that final 2 minutes of this game was what made this game the game, because you have long touchdowns on both sides, and you're like, all right, like it felt like this is like the way that they were going back and forth. It was insane. Like, and you were always like, all right, like which quarterback are you giving too much time? And right, like it's obviously we know like Aaron Rodgers, his pedigree. It's literally like what do we see him do his entire career is go down and score game-winning drives, go down and score these big crucial moments and deliver. And then you have an MVP candidate, a perennial MVP candidate on the side, and Lamar Jackson, who yes hasn't been at the Lamar Jackson we know, but we saw like he's still there. Like there were a lot of great plays that he made, whether it was with his arm, his legs, where he's making those Lamar Jackson plays that we've come to see from him. And literally that's really kind of all it took to kind of really get this thing going. And honestly, I kind of shit on them a little bit, the Steelers receiving core, but they had a couple of crucial moments in this fourth quarter that really kind of kept this game like going back and forth and putting the ball in the other team's court and saying, all right, now it's your turn to try and do this. It's our turn to try to get a stop. And there weren't a lot of stops in the fourth quarter.
Nope.
But and especially that final 2 minutes where okay, Ravens go down and score, Steelers go down and score. And then it goes down to the Ravens, who get into field goal range with their rookie kicker, who has been delivering for them. I'd say, especially since they moved on from a previous kicker, has been. I'd say he's been doing pretty good for them. And I don't have the numbers pulled up in particular, but I know he's been one of the most consistent kickers for them, and especially for them considering yes the muddied history of their past kicker, he was. Albeit before last season, probably their best kicker of their franchise and one of the best kickers of the NFL. So it was definitely like big shoes to fill. and he missed the kick that would send them into the playoffs. Okay, and this is what I always think about this is that yes, I understand he missed the kick and it cost him the game. At the same time, your defense allowed multiple drives of just like getting dog walked in the fourth quarter. Like and that's what I like. And yes, like it, there's a lot of like speculation of oh well if that happens and this doesn't happen, if you get a stop and stop this, I don't say abysmal, Steelers, passing offense, but if you're able to button down and say like, all right, we're trying to win this game, like it shouldn't have to go to the leg of your kicker, especially your rookie kicker in a moment where this is this is the biggest moment he could be at in his young career. Like that is a difficult place to put him at. And I think that comes down to your defense getting a stop beforehand, so it doesn't have to get to this point. But at the same time, he did miss it. Like there is no justifying that. But I just think there's two sides to that.
Yeah, and I think you can also put some blame on the offense here too. Like while they were playing really well in that fourth quarter, like Lamar made some really good throws. Like they got that one big play to Zay Flowers, which like kind of like put them in the lead, and then like Aaron Rodgers went down and got that touchdown to Calvin Austin. But after that, like when they had that minute left, they got a good kick return to start that drive. They almost got to like the 50, I think they got to like the 48, 49 yard line. Yeah. And it was like, okay, like this is a good setup for the Ravens to be like at least set up for a good field goal. But they also had time to go down and potentially get like just score in general, like get a touchdown. And they just Ronnie Stanley had a bad penalty, yeah. And they outside of like one play, which I think was the one that got called back, like they just weren't able to get anything going in that last minute. So then they had to rely on this rookie kicker to make, I think it was like a 47 yarder or something like that.
Sounds about right.
And then yeah, he goes wide right, and it's just I don't know, man. And look, obviously the Ravens. We'll talk about a little bit later about some changes they made today, but it wasn't a great season for them, and it came down to this moment, and it was just such a good microcosm of the problems they've had all year with, like you said, their defense not being there. Kyle Hamilton goes out in the third quarter, and they obviously were affected by that, and then just it's kind of got to a point where, especially on offense and defense, it's like, okay, who are we relying on here to make a play? Because our best defensive player in Kyle Hamilton is out. So who's going to step up here? Are we going to rely on the rookie safety to do something here? Or one of these older pass rushers to try something? And then on offense, if your best alignment is getting penalties and Lamar has done what he can do and Derrick Henry's done what he could do, it's like, what else is there, man? It's like DeAndre Hopkins, like there was a play where he could have gotten a first down and him and Lamar just weren't on the same page. It was like everything just felt disjointed for the Ravens when it came down to it. And like that disjointment ended up being their downfall, and now they're on the outside looking in, and they're going to be looking for a new coach at the same time. So I don't know, man.
Yeah. At the same time, I feel like I understated the Zay Flowers part of this. He had 4 catches for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So that was insane, and he's received a lot of criticism this year, especially because every time. And I've seen it like so many clips and examples of this, but they're like he's like the worst example of like, all right, like you catch the ball, all right, just go forward, and instead we see him go sideways before. I forget the exact like example of it, but like they were like if you ask like Zay Flowers to go like to, for example, PA. From Florida, he's stopping in Tennessee and then going to PA, like or something like that, because like that's just the type of player he is. But I do think that this was a game where it was like he needed to step up, and we saw that in the fourth quarter, but it just wasn't enough. Also, yeah. Isaiah Likely had an insane catch on, like you talk about that Ronnie Stanley false start, which was costly. Like Isaiah Likely, when he caught that, was a 26-yard pass to one, like get them in field goal range, and then 2, convert on 4th down. I was like, all right, like the Ravens won this game. And they did not, but it was a crucial moment.
Yeah, I do. I mean, we do have to give credit to the Steelers though. Like Aaron Rodgers threw the ball 47 times in this game, which for someone at his age is like, why are we using his arm this much before we go into the potentially the playoffs here? I mean, their running attack wasn't able to get much going, but I think they could have like leaned into it a little bit more. But I mean, you got to give credit to
how Hamilton went down.
Yeah, but Rodgers had a good game. He protected the ball well, and he made the plays when he had to make the plays. And it was still that same thing. It was like, okay, Aaron Rodgers, 2 minutes left in the game. Can he go down here and get a score? And he did. So shout out to him and the season that he's been having with the Steelers. it really is interesting to think about like where they would have been if they hadn't gotten him. Like, remember the whole thing of the offseason was like, okay, is Aaron Rodgers, is he going to go there? Is he not? Like, what's going on? There was like weird rumors about the Vikings wanting him too, but he ends up with the Steelers, and it's been up and down. But he has at least I feel like he actually has had a good season with them. He's been a steady presence for them, and there was some weird like clock manager stuff going on there in the end where
Yeah.
it felt like he was trying to like get the Ravens on something, like maybe like a jump, or like he was trying to take advantage of a formation they had when they were running up to the line and they just wanted to do it, so they
They
had to
were saying
waste
it
a
was
couple
he was
timeouts.
also dealing with a headset issue too, where it was like
Yeah.
in the helmet. So
But I mean, just the fact that they were just like, screw all that, like, let's just, I mean, obviously it comes down to a missed kick, but like they made the plays they had to make to get them to go to the playoffs. So shout out to Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers, man. I'm interested to see if they can do anything in the playoffs. You never know when you get an experienced quarterback like that into the playoffs. Well, we'll see what happens. But I mean, besides Tom Brady, we haven't seen a lot of guys that age at the quarterback position have much success in the postseason. So we'll see what happens.
yeah.
All right. Was there any other games like we had to talk about before we move
So
on?
I'll just just to bring it up, the Eagles. Okay, right?
Okay.
I'm gonna keep this short, at least on my side of this. And this is this is more so like speaking about like the game plan leading into this. I think it was a good decision to rest your starters. And
Yeah.
yes, I completely understand the standpoint of especially the Eagles offense wanting to get them some consistency, but if it is very, and I think like it's easy to take things for granted, but like it is very easy for something to go wrong, and then all of a sudden it is a lot worse than it is. And I'd rather have the team healthy and have like everyone 100% going into the playoffs, especially without a bye, like just going into the playoffs opposed to trying to secure to potentially play for the 2 seed. Because nobody knew the Lions were going to beat the Bears, and that was a big probability. And I think it's easy to look at this after and say, well, like you could have at least played them a quarter to try to get a good lead out, and it's like I don't trust that. Like there's a lot of flaky stuff when it comes to that, and it is too risky, especially for a city that will turn on you very fast if something was to go wrong. So I'll just say like whatever, like yes, the outcome was a loss, but it doesn't change that I think like you could have told them that the Bears were going to lose, and I still think they would have said, okay, like backups, go out there and try your best to get a win, because like at the end of the day, like yes, you can like you obviously would prefer to play a team that's coming into the playoffs maybe limping, or is limping in the Packers. But like at the same time, you just don't know. Like there's too many inconsistencies with everything, and it's not realistic enough to say, well, we're if you win, you were guaranteed to play the Packers.
Yeah, I was completely okay with them resting their starters, and there were some people like, oh, but the offense hasn't been good. Like we need to find like what were they gonna find in this game that they didn't already know? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like what were they gonna correct in this game that they haven't had multiple opportunities to correct already, including a few weeks ago when they already played this damn team and beat them with the starters, and then they beat the Raiders, and it was like, oh, cool, like this team, and like I said, I don't, just because you can beat up on bad defenses doesn't make me believe in you as an offense. Okay, like I just and this game showed me that this. I feel like this game, for people who have been so adamant, like in their disgust of this offensive scheme when it comes to Kevin Patullo and Nick Sirianni, this game didn't help Sirianni and Patullo out at all. Like
Yeah.
you went out there, and you had Tanner McKee throw the ball 40 times. He barely went above 50. He completed 21 of those passes, and it didn't look good. It didn't look good. Like the whole scheme, the setup, it's so predictable. It's so stagnant. It's inconsistent. It doesn't make sense. Like none of the play calls, like you're not setting anything up for later on. You're just kind of, it just feels like they're out there like in Madden when it gives you the suggested plays. It just feels like they're just picking one of those
I
three
did.
plays each time. They're like, oh,
I
that
actually
seems like it
heard
might
people
work.
say that. Coach suggestions.
Yeah, there's like it's like they're just going like, you know what? Of these three plays in my mind, this one might work. I don't know. It's like they're not even looking at the other team's
It's not. I don't even
tendencies.
think it's that at that point. How you can favorite plays on Madden. I think
Mm.
that's what they've favored it a
Yeah, and
couple
every
plays.
single play with multiple hitch routes is favorited,
Yeah.
and at the top of the playbook. It's just so I don't know. If anything, this just made me feel worse about the offense because it's like, dude, like I know it's a bunch of backups in there, but like you could have tried something here. Like this could have been a good game for you to hone in on your own stuff before you go into the playoffs as a coach and a play caller. And I didn't see any of that. So,
Yeah, and that was the one thing I had where it was like, all right, like my only suggestion was to be like to try to experiment, especially against the Commanders going into the playoffs, where it's like, all right, like yes, it's your backups, but you still get to try some different looks out and see what things can look like going into the playoffs, especially against a team that you don't got to worry about in the playoffs. Like it's you can kind of use them as a test dummy. And the fact that they weren't really experimenting or trying to do anything with it was like, all right, like, well, what was the point of that? Like, like, yes, like I understand, like you have to compete, like you got to send 11 players out there for a game. But I think like it was just disappointing the fact that like on the offensive end, they just couldn't get anything going. And then on the defensive end, like the DBs, like I think like
dude, okay. I saw someone today say that they were actually thankful for Adoree Jackson because he is like a dam that's holding back the ass that is Keely Ringo. I was like, God, Jesus. It's like, that's where we're at. We're praising Adoree Jackson because the depth behind him is just so much worse that it's like, actually, maybe Adoree Jackson has been good for us because he's preventing all this from happening, basically. And there's the one play that keeps popping up with Keely Ringo where he's got his back to Josh Johnson as he rolls out left. And instead of sticking with the quarterback who's rolling out to his left, right at the Reds' like 5 yard line, basically, where it's like, hey man, you should get on this guy. He decides to turn his back completely to the quarterback and look at a DB that's already being covered. So then it's an easy touchdown for Josh Johnson. It's just, yeah. And look, I don't know if like this is something I was like happy to be right about, but I said even like you can check our draft show that we did last year when it was like, okay, what are the Eagles going to do? I kept saying like I wouldn't mind them taking one of these corners because like you're like, yeah, okay, cool, they might get Adoree Jackson, which I don't even know if they had him at that point, but everyone's talking about like Keely Ringo, he can step up now. He's been one of the Georgia boys that's been hanging out in the background doing special team stuff, and he's been getting better and developing. And yeah, look, he might have all the physical tools, but he's a terrible in coverage. Like he's also like not the best tackler at times, which is infuriating for a guy with his physical abilities. So yeah, very disappointing game from Keely Ringo, and yeah, I just the Eagles clearly have something to address this offseason.
I think the commentators said it best where they were and they were talking about it in general, but then they were like they called Keely Ringo out in particular where they were like a good reason for these games is to understand that like yes, like you can have all the athletic tools and you can be exactly what people think you are, but understanding and having a game sense is completely different. And I think that this was a very clear example of that, where we see him going the exact opposite direction in a play like that, where it's like, all right, like even if there was a receiver behind him, you should never do that. Like that, it just doesn't make sense, like logically, to take your eyes off the quarterback. Where it's like, and yes, right, like you don't even know if he makes that tackle, but you're like once again we're leaning on the understanding that he's one of the more athletic players that he can make that open field tackle. Then you need to do that. And I think like if there's two screenshots that like are going to be my favorite things to come out of this season, it's going to be Keely Ringo facing the other direction as Josh Johnson runs in, and when Marvin Harrison Jr. put that DB on his ass, just running a slant route. I still think about that. It is filthy that he did not touch him.
Yeah, that was wild. It was against the Cowboys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was nuts.
Well, of course it was against the Cowboys.
Of course it was against. Yeah, of course it was against the Cowboys. Yeah. I will say so real quick because my player matchup was this. I said Tanner McKee versus his own basically trade value. Yeah, he's clearly a backup quarterback. If you were to look at this game, like he did nothing to help himself. Of course, again, that may be a little bit more on the scheme and Patullo and all them, but yeah, he went out there and threw the ball 40 times and barely got above 50%. Threw an interception that wasn't great. And it's I'm always like trying to like apprehensive about like criticizing the Philly media at times, but also I'm not, so who cares? But there was a lot of certain personalities within Philly talking about like, oh, maybe Tanner McKee should be the starter going forward. There's those rumors about like maybe he's a better option for this team on offense because he can operate it better, something stupid like that. Like it was all stupid, whatever they said about it. Any notion that Jalen Hurts should be the starter of this team is just stupid, straight up. And this kind of helped solidify that. Yeah, I'm not saying Tanner McKee's a bad quarterback. I'm not saying he can't be a solid player. I'm just saying he has no future of being a starter for this team unless something tragic happens to Jalen Hurts.
I have to agree with you, because and that was one of the things that I was kind of looking into this, which was the fact that like it's like all right, like people were for whatever reason saying that it was worth a shot, at least considering it. And this was the issue is that right, like people would rather try to go for these long drawn out explanations of looking into other quarterbacks than sitting here and yes, I understand a lot of people are criticizing Patullo. At the same time, like I think it's hard to, especially if you're not a fan, to like fully understand how bad it is. And I think like that is like there's nothing else to be said about it. It's just terrible. It's just terrible.
Can I? Sorry, I'm laughing because
I do
I
got a
finally
question
realized
for
what you
you.
have under your name too. By the way, that's why I started laughing. But number one Jay fan. It's like comment. I was like, what? Can I ask you something though?
Yeah,
Because there's been
I
a
got a question
constant.
to follow up right after for you.
Okay,
So
okay.
yeah,
So there's
mine's
been a
probably more
constant
down the road.
debate between Eagles fans, and it's kind of leaked into some other fan bases too, as they've noticed us arguing about this stuff as like an Eagles fan base
Yeah.
about the whole you're upset with your team but they're winning kind of thing. And maybe as an OKC fan, you can relate to this because your fan base has been a little bit annoying the past couple of weeks too with this.
Yeah.
But I think there's a difference, right? And then maybe this is a good like foil for me to like compare the two. The Eagles on one hand, like yes, they were winning games. Like they end the season right with like a good. They're 11-6, fine, right? Good, you're winning games. But there's also the fact of like they're winning, but you're not winning because of like a holistic team thing. Most of these games, it's like one side of the ball is carrying you, and the other side of the ball is just doing barely enough to help you get across the finish line. Whereas like a team like OKC, you're like, look, like this team is the best team in basketball. Winning 70, beating the record of 73-9 is gonna be one of those nearly impossible things to do. Oh God, it's gonna be one of those nearly impossible things to do in basketball. So there's gonna be bumps in the road for a team like that, and like there's no reason to panic for a team like that because we've seen even just this season that they'll be fine, and they have ways to be fine if they needed to like push the button, which is a scary notion with Sam Presti. But going back to the Eagles and their fan base, it's just I think there's because I think some people are saying, "Oh, you got to be realistic. They're winning the games," but they clearly have a major issue when it comes to their offense, and it's such an issue that everyone who looks at it can come to the same conclusion if you watch and study this offense long enough. Everyone can come to the same conclusion, right? There's no like, well, I think it's this, I think it's that, unless you're an idiot saying like it's the quarterback's fault. But that has been disproven, I think. And especially in previous years when you have a guy who's like performed the way he has in the playoffs in the Super Bowl and Jalen Hurts. And then now you get to a point where they're like, well, we're going to the playoffs. So what's everybody complaining about? Because they're like, now I'm seeing like 49ers fans like, are y'all really just upset with your team? Like, is your offense really that ass? And it's kind of like Eagles fans coming to grips with like, yeah, I don't trust our offense in any way at all. Like my confidence is in the talent of the players, but not in the usage of the talent of those players. And I think that's just you can be realistic and you can be happy about the wins, but you can also be realistic in the fact that this team has issues and inconsistencies, and they have to be recognized. And what the biggest part of that is like getting your team, like hoping that your own team that you root for is like accountable in that way, and that they can be like they can self-evaluate and be like, yeah, look, we suck in these ways and we're trying to fix it, but they have shown that they aren't. They've been stubborn. So that's why like a lot of Eagles fans are pretty, I don't know, just it's tense going into this playoffs. We'll just say that.
And okay, so if we're following the comparison, and yes, like obviously two different teams across two different sports, but like OKC, like yes, they've lost a couple of games the
A
past couple
couple.
weeks. Yeah, whatever. But at the same time, I'm not gonna sit here and mope about it because one, like they're like they can lose like they can mirror this exact same performance for the entire remainder of the season. And they'll still finish with the like they're on track to finish with the same exact record they did last season,
Yeah,
which
they'll
was
be around 60 plus wins.
yeah, like it is not an issue to like to say like all right like this like it'd be like a gross negligence of like of a microphone if I was to sit here and say Sam Presti needs to make trades right now and fix this team because they're on track to not make it back to the playoffs. Like that would be unrealistic. And very much so. But with the Eagles, it's like, all right, you have all the personnel, you have everything, and it is really just like I said, execution. And I think like so many times, it's easy to say that, and I think. I think the remainder of the like how the playoffs shake out is going to determine a lot.
Yeah.
And I think like and it's crazy to say that a quarter or a head coach who has had as much success as he has is like I don't want to say it's a super hot seat, but I do think like you start to look and maybe they say all right like maybe it was just an all Padulo thing, but at some point you have to kind of question and say like what are you doing to try to fix these problems when they arise? Like what are you doing to handle the things that you can control, which are penalties as a head coach? Like you need to be able to fix these things. That's why you're the leader of this team. You need to be able to steady the ship when things go wrong. And I think Patullo won, and Sirianni haven't been able to steady the ship when, or maybe they do, but it's like it feels like, and it's the best analogy I can do it, but it's like all right, like I think of like those cartoons where it's like all right, like you're on a boat, right? And there's like little holes that pop up in the boat, and the cartoon character just grabs like tape, and it's clearly about to like burst, but they're like, all right, like it's good enough just for right now, and that feels like what it is with the Eagles, where it's like, all right, like we put a little Band-Aid here, on a crack that's like building more and more, and you're like, all right, like that should hold for right now. We'll get to it when we get to it, but we don't got to worry about it right now. And it's like you probably should. Like that is an issue, and I think that is my concern with the Eagles compared to like OKC.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk a little bit more of the Eagles here soon when we preview some of these matchups. But
Real quick though,
mhm.
speaking of bad DBs, and I was thinking about this, but there's one bad DB in particular that crossed my mind when I was seeing Keely Ringo out there, and that's Michael Jacquet. And I want to ask you, who, who would you like? Like say the Eagles are going against the Cowboys.
Michael Jacquet. I'm saying that right now.
Okay, somebody needs to guard CeeDee Lamb on a divisional game to against the Cowboys to make it into the playoffs. It's basically like Steelers Ravens scenario. You win and you're in. Somebody needs to go out there and guard, and contain CeeDee Lamb for 4 quarters. Who are you choosing?
Bradley Fletcher. That's where we're at with this. That's the level of play I trust him in. So I just, yeah, I would probably take Michael. And the reason I would take Jack because he at least tried. Like, right, there was like he could be physical at like at the start of the route. Like he would try to be physical at the point of like when they're like at the point of attack. Like he at least was like getting his hands out and like being in the right spot. He just wasn't always able to like make the play, I guess. Like he had a couple games where you're like, oh, maybe there's something here. With Keely, I've been the entire time I've ever seen him on the field as a starter. There's never been a moment where I've been like, well, it's like okay, cool. Every once in a while he'll make a good tackle on special teams, but there's never been a moment with him where he's been a starter in the NFL where I've been like, I've got what, I see something here. No.
I brought up Michael Jacquet and the Cowboys in particular because Andy Dalton fried this man, and there's a screenshot of Michael Jacquet, and it's like the stats, and it says thrown at 9 times, he's allowed 7 catches for 182 yards.
Yeah,
that was and look, I think more than anything, I think this is a positive that like we hopefully, barring any injury, don't have to worry about seeing hopefully any of these players DBs in the playoffs.
I'd rather see Bennett if we're going to use a different guy.
And
or Michael Carter who you traded for.
Yeah. I think getting some use out of them would be beneficial. I think you've seen that the Keely Ringo experiment is not successful. And you can say, all right, like, say we made a mistake. And I think like Howie Roseman has been great with it the past couple of years, saying we made a mistake, let's move on and move in a positive direction. This is the perfect time to do it. And there's a couple of, and this is why I say this offseason is going to be, playoffs and the offseason is going to be interesting because what are the Eagles going to admit to mistake wise and say, yes, that's us, we'll be better for the future, or no, we're going to double down and continue to do these type of things. So
Well, I think they've already admitted the Keely Ringo mistake because you drafted two other corners right after him in Cooper and Quinion, and you've also made multiple moves during the season to try and get more depth there because of how worried you are about what's behind Adoree Jackson and just Adoree Jackson himself, right? Like they brought in Bennett, they brought in Carter, they try to bring in um, Jair Alexander. There are talks about them bringing in Darius Slay, like, and I feel like I'm even missing a corner that's been like rotated through, but. So they've tried, like they clearly recognize the issue, and now it's just moving forward, like you said, this offseason where it's like, okay, what's the real fix here? Because we try to throw a bunch of like kind of like feelers out there and try to get like maybe this guy will pop, maybe he won't, kind of things. But now you need like a real solution going to the offseason. All right, let's move on. Were there any unit matchups or anything else you want to talk about from these games that happened before we kind of move forward to a more of a review of the season?
nothing else really stands out to me, at least right now.
Okay. Yeah, let's get to it, man. So the this what's it? Today's Tuesday. So yesterday we started seeing a lot of coaches. It's that time of the year, right, where a lot of coaches and GMs and what I mean, just coordinators, right, right. A lot of people losing their jobs, which is always an unfortunate part of the season, but also kind of a necessary part of the season that happens every year, where a lot of teams move on after disappointing seasons. So let's let's go through it because there were a lot, and some of it's like just happening in the today in the past few hours as well. So yeah, let's start with the latest one actually because I want to start this conversation now. The Ravens fired John Harbaugh, and was it John? Yeah, they fired Harbaugh after 18 years with the Ravens. Obviously, he won a Super Bowl with them, had a pretty good career with them, I would say, but there's been a lot of talk the past 3 or 4 years, I would say, about whether or not he should still be the head coach, whether or not they need to look for someone else. But the Ravens don't make changes like that often. I mean, he was their third head coach ever in the franchise, so this was a big move, a move that kind of caught a lot of people off guard. Like there was like when it was announced a few hours ago, some people were like, "Whoa, like this is the biggest news now." And it was reported that after he got fired, his agent was saying he had 7 NFL teams reach out to him like within the first half hour of the announcement that him and the Ravens were parting ways, which is kind of how they worst it. And of course, now all these reports are going to come out like he lost the locker room, like players started to have doubt in him. Like part of the reason was like they were thinking about moving on from Todd Monken, but he wanted to keep Monken, like things like that. Even though Monken's getting like questions about like or like inquiries about him potentially being like interviewed for head coaching jobs, which is interesting. But yeah, so can I just what is your initial thoughts on the Ravens moving on from? Do you agree with it?
Okay, so I'm a bit conflicted, but I think I'm leaning towards I agree. And I'll say mostly because of like how I think ironically the second half of the season is what kind of gets me conflicted because if you would have said like, all right, like the past couple seasons where you've had an MVP at Lamar Jackson and you've had Derrick Henry, you've had somewhat a pretty good draft of like defenders and being able to draft defense really well. You've had at least solid options. You've had Zay Flowers. Yes, we talked about him earlier. You've had a DeAndre Hopkins who has stepped up for you at moments. Like you've had everything you've needed to make a push in the AFC and potentially be a Super Bowl candidate. And every year it's like, all right, like we see the same thing of this is your year. We could see you being a Super Bowl, contender. This is your year. We could see you, winning a Super Bowl. You have MVP Lamar Jackson. You have everything you need. And then each year it's something different where it's like you don't meet that expectation. And so you kind of do start to question and say like, all right, like is Harbaugh the guy to get us over the hump? At the same time, though, what I'm conflicted about is the fact that like the way the Ravens were able to rebound from their terrible start, where it's like everything is going wrong. Lamar's hurt, your entire defense is being hurt, and they're able to regroup to even being able to compete for the division. I think was a moment where it's like, all right, like this, like it's a credit to Harbaugh being able to manage, and it's the same way I look at the Bucks and say, all right, like it's an issue that Bowles wasn't able to manage and be able to at least try to make the most out of his personnel and figure things out despite injuries. The Ravens did, and I think that a lot of credit goes to Harbaugh for that. But at the same time, it's like, all right, like is it really enough considering how many times you've disappointed and how many times you haven't been able to get over the hump the past couple of seasons? So that's why I look at it and say, well, I could see it going either way.
I I think it was time. Honestly, I think. I mean, like you were there for 18 years. You did something right. Like I'm not in no way do I think he's a bad coach, but I do think everything ran its course, right? It's kind of like the conversation around Tomlin right now. Is like there's the conversation about Belichick and his time with the Patriots. Like it just gets to a point where you need to make a change, right? Especially if you're not finding the success you need. And I think that's the biggest part, man. I think the Ravens organizationally have squandered this window that they had for like this championship window that they had. Um, you had Lamar, who's been a like you said a perennial MVP candidate. I think we both agree that he probably should have won it last year. This year has been great, like you said. They've been dealing with some injuries and stuff, but also a lot of the issues that they've had have been caused by themselves. I mean, they're one of the teams where they rely. I think, look, I've always respected the Ravens organization as being a team that can draft well, but I think they've relied on that too much, especially in recent years where you signed Derrick Henry. That was a good signing, like a big signing that you made, but you don't do that enough. Like, and I'm not saying you have to go out and sign all these big names all the time, but you can keep people that were good for you, or you can bring in other people to fill in things like, for smaller roles, whether it be like the interior of a line, like a different receiver. Like you brought in DeAndre Hopkins, but and yeah, he had some nice moments, but it wasn't enough. Like DeAndre Hopkins at this point of his career is not the needle mover that he used to be. So then you're relying on, a Mark Andrews who has his own faults. Isaiah Likely who can kind of do some stuff like he'll step every once in a while, but there was no true like one guy in that passing attack where you were like obviously outside of Lamar, but like the people he was throwing to where you were like, okay, this is a guy who can just go get you a bucket basically. Derrick Henry can do what he can do, but they didn't even use him properly throughout most of the season. And then the defense just like injuries are there, but I don't know, man. Like you have to invest. This is my main thing. You have to like the smart organizations invest in the trenches on both sides, and I don't think they did that enough. They have some fun younger players that like could potentially be like good role players, but there's not a guy on that defensive side of the ball, especially who you're like, I need to worry about him getting to the quarterback. Roquan Smith looks like he's regressed a bit. They don't have much like behind him. I just organizationally, I think they set themselves up for failure and they squandered a window that they had with Lamar Jackson. And now you're at a point where you're gonna have to find a new coach who can come in there, get this back together, and hopefully not mess up what is the second half of Lamar's career, however long that may be. Because, like I said, he's been injured. This wasn't a great year for him. Can he bounce back next year with someone else? Is I think what the Ravens are thinking now. But you also have to start thinking like internally as an organization, like what else can we change? And I think the first step in that was Harbaugh, and I think this was the right move for them to make in that sense, where it's like we just kind of need to reorganize a lot of what's going on in an organization, and that starts with getting rid of this probably Hall of Fame coach, who will probably be one of the first people hired. He's probably the number one candidate on a lot of people's list now for these vacancies, and I don't know. You got to bring someone in who Lamar can like vibe with. That might be the wrong word for this, but just someone he can fully trust and work with to get them over this hump that they just, even when they've gone on these deep playoff runs, which has kind of saved Harbaugh's career in Baltimore at times, like especially the previous couple seasons. You need to find someone who can really get this offense going under Lamar Jackson. I think that's got to be the number one priority.
Yeah, I think for the past couple seasons, it's simply been all right. We'll hit a position and we'll hit good in the draft. We'll like make a good pick and then we'll just instantly like without question run it back.
Yeah.
And I think like that's been the issue where it's like that's only sustainable for so long where it's like you can't just keep saying all right like this team's good enough when you clearly seen that there's issues and it isn't good enough. So it is always like one step of like all right like what could you have done better to get it over the hump. And I like after all the like there's both sides to it. I do agree with you in the sense that like it was time like
Yeah.
and there's like they realize that like Lamar is like on the second half of his career. You've seen the injuries. You need to take advantage of the window. You need to take advantage of, and yes, like Derrick Henry, monster of men. You've seen how he's still running through people at his age. You don't know how much sustainable, like how much longer you'll be able to get that out of him. So I do agree. It's like all right, like you bring in someone else who Lamar can vibe with, who can be an offensive guy. You have you've historically had great defenses and been able to have great defensive coordinators who can do a great job, kind of building the defense. That's your direction you go. You try to like once again you can trust your draft strategy, but also go out and make moves in the free agency and go for these people. So it's I at the end of the day it is I think the right choice.
Yeah. I don't know, but do you have any? Like, I'll ask you this at the end of each team that we talk about. Who would be your ideal candidate to come in for this team if you had one on your mind?
This is going to be a bad question for each one because there are so many moving pieces where it's like it truly is difficult.
It doesn't have to it doesn't have to be the one where you're like, oh, I think this is like
Yeah.
just off the top of your head. If you had to be like, I think this might be a good fit.
So
Can I tell you mine first?
yeah, go ahead,
Stefanski.
Stefanski. Okay, and I don't know how. And look, I think this person I'm going to say has fallen a lot with how things went at his previous head coaching job and this previous offensive coordinator job. But if you're looking for an offensive mind, do you consider Cliff Kingsbury here?
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Dable.
Okay, Dable. I thought about okay. I'm strictly thinking offensive minds here.
Oh, 100%.
And I I don't trust Dable after the whole New York thing. So I'm leaning like Kingsbury because it's like you know what he has as an offensive mind. And yes, the Cardinals experiment didn't work, and I think to some degree you'd say that the Commanders experiment also didn't work. But like it had its up and downs where the team was an NFC champion in the NFC Championship last year, but then this year. But could you blame that on him if like the injuries were so much of a big issue and Jaden Daniels is looking to hurt himself every there's so many like moving pieces to this, but I would consider it at least.
Kingsbury. I don't think I've hidden that I'm not the biggest fan of how he operates his offenses, and I think his time with the Cardinals showed. Like, I don't think he's built for that. But I don't know, man. Yeah, I don't know. Stefanski came to mind, who, by the way, was fired by the Browns. We'll talk about that in a second. I like that because, like, he's shown, like, coach of the year, right? Like, multiple times. He's shown that he can run an offense when he has, a quarterback, that's not Joe Flacco or a fifth-round rookie. So I would trust him to come in and be able to run that offense and make Lamar, like, productive again and just kind of get that offense on track, which I do think should be the main thing with the team. Like, the whole focus of this organization should be getting Lamar Jackson right again and, like, just kind of revolving everything around him and that offense. And then the defense still has pieces, and you can bring in someone, like, to, like, I don't know who you bring in for that, but I don't know. I think Stefanski was, like, the first thing that came to my mind.
Yeah.
All right, but yeah, let's talk about the Browns. A team, okay. So the Browns fired Kevin Stefanski, but they're keeping their GM in Andrew Berry. I get why they did it. Like, to me, I thought they should have fired the GM too, if we're being honest. Because this is a team that
only for the Deshaun Watson thing alone, like that, he's still on the roster.
My only thing with that is that has always felt like, and I feel like even Dave admitted that was more of an ownership thing than it was a GM thing. Like, the Haslams, for some reason, were like all in on Deshaun Watson, clearly because they agreed to pay that money in that contract. But that doesn't happen without the ownership's approval, and I think that was more of an ownership push to make that happen. But Andrew Berry is still involved with that, and Andrew Berry is also still involved in the atrocious drafting that they've done. This last draft was good, right? They've got some good rookies. That's fine. But the majority of his drafts have not been great, right? And, I mean, think about the Browns as they currently stand, right? What are the Browns if they don't have Myles Garrett?
You have a good potential, rookie of the year candidate and Carson Schlesinger, but all of the success on the defensive end, it still is impacted by Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett
was getting you 5 sacks a game, and you're not even winning all those games.
Yeah.
By the way, shout out to Myles Garrett. Broke the record. Congrats to him. Great job. Still annoyed that you decided to stay with the Browns. It annoys me that he had to get this record on such a crappy team on a crappy organization, and that the whole, like, when we remember this in the like, I didn't go back and look, but like I feel like most people when they have these records broken, that they're actually at least on like decent teams, like Strahan, like J.J. Watt, T.J. Watt, and those guys. Like they were at least kind of like on playoff teams. The Browns were like we never thought this was gonna be a playoff team since like 5 years ago. I could have told you 5 years ago that 5 years from then they weren't gonna be a playoff team. Like I could have told you that because this organization sucks.
Well,
And
okay, wait. Well, 5 years ago, they would have just made the playoffs with Baker Mayfield, right? Like I think you would have had some
okay,
confidence in
sorry.
them.
Since they got rid of Baker Mayfield and they brought Deshaun Watson, and I could have told you this team was gonna be crap. We'll go with that. I just the it starts with ownership for me, and I've made that clear, right? Where your talent evaluation has been far off. The decisions, like the people that you've allowed this organization to take a risk on, have not worked out. Like Deshaun Watson, and then you're also signing other players who have other off the field issues that we don't need to get into. But there's a clear pattern with your organization where you're saying, like, we'll take this player despite all the risks that are happening. And I think more and more as your team continues to lose, as you continue to sign like controversial players and draft controversial players, as you continue to have to consistently do these regime changes, and I feel like they're starting to alienate their fan base to a point where it's like, what is the point of this organization other than that they're just one of like the blue blood or whatever you want to call it, like legacy organizations within the NFL? If this was an NBA team, we'd be talking about like, dude, did they need to relocate, change ownership, like things like that? Like this team is awful, or the organization is awful. I don't know if I had a whole point to this other than just saying that this organization is awful, and it just I if I'm Kevin Stefanski, I'm happy as hell because I know I'm going to be a candidate. Like I know who I am as a coach, and I know that I'm going to have opportunities elsewhere for an organization that actually may be serious.
Yeah, your resume speaks for itself. You can have two-time coach of the year. Look at what I was able to salvage out of the defense. Like I think that'd be my positive. It'd be like, well, the organization gave me all this, and look, I still got 6 wins with that team somehow. Like that's impressive in
Like I
itself.
had Dilling, he think about this. He started like this season was doomed from the very beginning when they were like Joe Flacco's our starter and our backups are. It was originally Kenny Pickett till they traded him, and then they're like we got Dylan Gabriel, Shador Sanders. That was your quarterback room to start this year, and the one most people were saying like needed a chance with Shador Sanders. You were reluctant to make that even happen, and then maybe that's obviously that's a Stefanski thing there too. But let's be honest, Shador Sanders, while I enjoy him, I love the perfect timing, Sally, all that stuff, and I root for him. The tape wasn't good. The tape was not good this year. Like he had some moments, but the tape overall wasn't that great. And you handcuff Stefanski to Flacco, Gabriel, and Shador Sanders to start this year, and no running game to speak of besides Junkins, who had his issues at the beginning of the year, then ends up getting injured. So the O-line is bad. The receivers, you're relying on Jerry Jeudy to be your number one. Like, what are we doing? Like, you're lucky Harold Fannin popped. I don't. It was just such a I don't know. So honestly, maybe this is just me saying like, congrats, Kevin Stefanski. Like, you might be the happiest coach that got fired over this week. And I'm looking forward to see where you go next, unless it's for the Giants. But yeah.
Okay. Coaching options. I don't know anyone brave enough to want to step into this. But
Condoleezza Rice. Let's bring back those rumors.
you know what? Look, okay. This is crazy to say that I think that there could potentially be even maybe a slim chance of this ever happening. But if there was one person to do it, I think this would be the person. And this organization as well. If you really want anybody to take you need a leader, right? You need someone who can be the vocal point, the voice of the locker room, can really do whatever you need. Especially, one of the biggest perks about, perks downsides of the Browns, is that you're constantly in the media and you constantly have to talk. And what better person to handle the media than Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith, that is my vote for the Browns' next head coach. Because and think about it, right? Like, think about the pairing him with Shador Sanders, right? Like you get a new offensive coordinator, you get your defense coordinator stays the same because defense is phenomenal. And you say, all right, like he's the mouthpiece of your team, right? Like you bring him in and you just let him run. So that's my suggestion because the Browns aren't serious, and we know that. And
at that point, bring in Shador's dad. Why not take a shot on Dion?
could be an option as well. Actually let them both do it. Like let
Oh,
let
God.
Stephen A be the let Stephen A be the mouthpiece and let Dion be the coach.
Yeah, they're just bringing Skip. Just why not? It's just why not? Yeah, I don't know. Is this the worst coaching vacancy?
Okay, I mean, like, yes, I will say yes, just because it's the Browns organization, and they'll find a way to mess it up. But you do seriously have like a phenomenal defense and especially young pieces that you can work with. But I think at the same time, you also have the organization working against you. So I think like, and yes, I'm joking with Stephen A. Smith stuff, but like I think you really need to have someone who can come in with a fresh mindset that is like, all right, like ignore all the noise and just like focus on football and getting this team like in a positive direction. And that might even be ignoring what your organization has to say. So
I because I think the biggest offseason thing is besides them getting a coach is like, okay, what's the Deshaun Watson question? Are we rolling or are they rolling next year with him? Like, is that their plan going
okay,
forward?
and I the easy answer is to say get rid of him. But at the same time, it's difficult to say that with the amount of money and time you've invested into this. Like that's the biggest issue where it's like this isn't just dumping a veteran quarterback. It's dumping a veteran quarterback with an insane contract. Like that's going to be the difficult part and all that.
Yeah, I
'Cause
just
I think you want to say, oh, like it was worth it if he gets out there and has a phenomenal season, but like, is it like at this point, like it's just trending towards it's not going to happen. So we'll see.
whatever. Who cares? It's the Browns. Like, I'm just so over them and everything that they do. All right, let's move on to another organization. The Atlanta Falcons fired Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot. So coach and GM out of there. Raheem Morris, this was his second year. Obviously, this era, I guess you'll call it, the Falcons started off kind of weird and it ends kind of weird. The drafting the last 2 years was definitely odd. The Michael Penix stuff, who like I'm a fan of Michael Penix. I still think he deserves one more shot at this, but there's a health issues there, which we knew about before he was even drafted. But then there was like the Kirk Cousins signing, and then you have your quarterback come in to start your last month of his rookie season, basically, and then he gets injured his second year, and now here we are, right? You have this weird quarterback situation. You made a weird trade decision, which like the player you got, James Pierce, who gets like 10.5 sacks on the year as a rookie, fine, but still the whole process of getting him in there was odd. And I just like the defense kind of like outperformed expectations, but the offense, they can never find anything. And part of that was because of injuries and the O line regressing. Like Bijan obviously had a great year. Kyle Pitts was was solid. Drake London was good when he was on the field. Right, more injuries there. They lost Mooney at one point, so it's like they had a lot of like stuff to deal with, like when it came to injuries and whatnot. But they also screwed themselves over in the end. And I think we're getting to a point with Arthur Blank, the Falcons owner, where he is at an age where things are feeling a little bit more desperate and he wants to see results. And so when you go through 2 years that the Falcons just went through with the complete disappointment that they've had, where at one point we were talking about this potentially being the winner of this division, and now they're where they're at, I get why this happened. Like there were parts of this team where you're like, it's kind of good. Like I think the coordinators did a fine enough job. Like like there wasn't anything like egregious about what they did. Like I said, like the injuries were bad, but at the same time, just the entire process of like the way that they were running this team was just it wasn't going to get them to where they needed to go.
Yeah. Okay. What I will say, and I agree with you to an extent, but I think I'm leaning in the opposite direction of like I think you should have given him another year to at least.
I can agree with that.
And that's where I'm at with this because we talked about this last week is that I think and especially I think you mentioned a key part of this is that they are expecting results, and I think it is very difficult to do that. And I think like now like it's very easy to say, all right, our coach is bad, we're going to fire him. What do you do after? Because now you're going to have a head coach that's going to come in. He doesn't have a first round pick this year because that belongs to the Rams. Obviously, you have a ton of potential across the board. That players you did trade. James Pierce Jr. You have Jalen Walker. Like you have hell Bijan Robinson who like is probably
AJ Terrell, like Jesse Bates,
like Drake London. Like you have like a lot of key pieces, but like you're giving them you're giving this to a new coach and saying, all right, figure it out. Like there isn't much to do from there. And I think like at least it wouldn't have hurt to have another season because you didn't have a direction. Now you still don't have a direction, but you don't have a coach. And I think it's better to have just one of them instead of opposed to both issues.
Yeah, the Falcons are just feel like a cursed organization, man. And I don't know. Like I think you're right. I think this is one of the more attractive coaching options if you're a candidate right now out there looking, right? Like I would definitely take a meeting with the Falcons if I'm out there, right? Like I wouldn't just say like no to them. Like if they ask me like, hey, because you're right, like look at the pieces. Like yeah, you like the draft might be a little tricky this year, but you do have pieces in there to work with. Like this isn't going to be a team where like the Raiders, which we'll get to them, but this isn't a team like the Raiders where you got to start from -10 and work your way up. This is a team that's like like I could see them making the playoffs next year if they got the right guy in there.
Yeah. And in your mind, like who transitioning, who's the right guy for them?
Okay. Um. All right. I maybe you bring in a guy because I don't know. Like, do you bring in an experienced guy or like a guy who's never had a coach before? It's like a lot of the decisions these guys got to make. But maybe you bring in a Jesse Minter, the Chargers defensive coordinator. I would like to see him work. I think he could work with this defense really well and get them to a point where it's like I think he's a smart enough coach where he would have more to work with here. Like, I don't know. I don't want to say more than the Rams have, but there's pieces there that he can work with as a defensive coordinator. And I think like coming from like they've already well actually never mind. See, I'm like debating with myself right now because they also already Raheem Morris just came from the Rams as well, so it's like they're not gonna go back to that. So
Jesse.
oh well, not Raheem Morris, but like yeah. So because I was also thinking about Shula, Mentor. I don't know. It's all kind of like damn, this is hard. Yeah, they're one of the weird ones because, like I said, like this could be another fancy spot. Like, but then does he also want to deal with another coaching or like a quarterback room like this? Probably not.
Yeah, and this is my thing, and I talk about the direction. Is like what, where does the organization want to see this team at? And I think that's where I'm most confused at because it's like, do you like if you're a head coach interviewing, what is the organization telling you? Where are they saying like this is a competing team? We need you to get us like to be like because like you finished 8-9, like, and I think like that is after all the craziness, like to even like and yes, the division is lacking in itself, but like for you to have still gotten the like the team to this point, like I don't. I'm just confused on like where the direction is and what they're telling coaches who are interviewing and saying like you're the person that can get us two more wins and we're leading the division or like what is it that they're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know because it's like, what do you want to bring in a guy who can focus more on defense or offense, or do you want a guy who can kind of be like that CEO type, who's not even going to be one of your play callers? Like, what direction? What's the best direction like forward for the Falcons here, right? Like, do you just want like a complete regime change where you get like an attitude adjustment because they're going to bring in a new GM as well? So like, do you bring in a guy like Brian Flores who knows you're going to bring in like a certain level of intensity with him as he comes in, and he's going to demand a lot of his locker room, or do you bring in a guy like Cliff Kingsbury who's going to be more of like the sleek, stylish kind of like let's run this offense and we're all chill here and it's fun, but then you kind of worry about like is he going to be able to control like a younger like team like this? And it's like I don't know. Maybe you lean into the strength and you get an offensive guy like Clint Kubiak or someone like that, and then you just lean into the strength of your team and hopefully like I think they should have maybe like thought about keeping Ulbrich their defensive coordinator and then bringing in a different head coach, but I don't know. The Falcons are a tricky one because like
Yeah.
I don't know what your idea is for going forward with them because I do think they're on like they're looking for results quick.
What do you, yeah, because like, and I think right, like if that's the if that's the option, then maybe you want to just attack and say, all right, our defense was like showed flashes of being phenomenal. Let's go all in on them and like get a defensive mind who can really push them to the maximum and bring in like a Brian Flores. But at the same time, it's like you're banking on a lot, and I think like you're really banking on those players on your defense to take that next level, especially those young players, and rely on them because you don't have a draft pick. You can't have somebody that can come in and say like, all right, they're going to be our phenomenal player, and maybe you find that out in free agency, but it, yeah, it really depends if and on like I said, like what the vision and what the organization is telling head coaches that are interviewing and saying we feel like we're a team that's like expecting results, or this is going to be a project where we rebuild like a not rebuild but retool what we look like and retool our mindset of the organization.
Yeah, they're a tricky one, man. I didn't think like we were thinking about this like this one was trickier than I thought it would be. But I don't know because anytime you fire your GM at the same time, it's like clearly the ownership is like we need to go in a new direction. So maybe the new direction, like you just had a more of like a defensive guy in there, and then you brought in Zach Robinson to be your offensive coordinator. Maybe you're right. Maybe they lean into more of the defense, like make this like let's try and build this up as much as we can and bring in an offensive mind where they're not the head coach. They can just focus on the offense and we develop and go from there. But I just, yeah, I don't know. We're wrong. All right, let's move on. Okay, next vacancy you want to talk about. Let's go. Ugh, God. All right. You want to talk about the Dolphins real quick? Because they fired their GM, but they're keeping McDaniels. And McDaniel said, "I'm coaching here until I'm told otherwise," or something like that. But um, I kind of like this decision. I think this was the right move.
Yeah, and I think especially like we talk about teams that had an impressive second half, and the Dolphins were one of those teams where they were able to regroup a little bit, especially like all the chaos that we were hearing about, like the locker room being lost, and you had Tua speaking out in the media, and then people speaking out against Tua in the media. For all of that buzz to be really kind of quieted down in the second half of the season says a lot about him as a head coach to be able to kind of control that locker room and rein it back in, especially when we thought he was going for sure.
Yeah,
at least by the halfway point of the season.
We thought he was gonna be an Eagle.
Yeah, we were like, all right, like maybe too late for offensive coordinator, but you could at least like some assistance we need. But it's crazy that like he was able to regroup this team. And okay, and look, like they're a team as well where I think like it's going to be a soft, not a soft, it's going to be a reset. Like you're especially when you need to find a new quarterback. Like I don't, the Tua clearly isn't the guy. You've seen that. And yes, you still do have a couple of nice pieces in like a Devon A chain. But like I think like it's just going to be interesting to see like I like the decision, but I'm curious to like see how much leeway and how much longer he stays alongside this rebuild.
Yeah, I mean, I think you bring in a new GM, you get a new quarterback, you give it a couple of years at least. I still think Mike McDaniel is one of the best offensive coordinators in the league. I think he's proven that he was clearly hindered by Tua. Like that, like Tua was like the main issue for this team, and McDaniel was able to like work around that. Like we've seen him evolve his offenses like throughout the course of regular seasons multiple times now. Where it's like think about this year where they became a good running team. They were just like screw it, we don't have a quarterback. Let's just we're not going to force the issue. Let's just be a good running team and then try to help out the quarterback in other ways so that it's not as much on them. And he's shown his creativity and his way to evolve and adapt on the fly. So I still think, and then their defensive coordinator, Anthony Weaver, he might get interviewed for some head coaching positions, but like I'm sure they're going to want to try and keep him in there too because he truly like this defense was kind of underrated, and I think he's a really good defensive coordinator. So honestly, yeah, you bring in a GM there, and they're letting like they clearly trust Mike McDaniel because they're allowing him to help search for their next GM at the same time. So I actually think the Dolphins are an interesting team to watch for me this offseason because I like their coaches, and I do think they have some pieces to work with going forward. Like you mentioned, Achane, you still have Jalen Waddle, and I like their defense. You've got some decent linebackers, and your D line's not terrible. And like you have options and ways to like clear cap space and make moves, right? You can cut Tyreek Hill, save some money. The Tua thing is weird because it might have to be one of those where like, they might have to keep him as a backup quarterback, or you just eat all that money right away. So I don't know what their decision is going to be there with this contract and how they handle that situation, but they clearly are going to have to get another quarterback. And then that's going to be the most interesting thing for me with the Dolphins going forward is McDaniels came into the Dolphins with Tua already there, right? And he kind of was like, okay, I can work with this guy. And like, we thought like this marriage might be good, and it kind of started off good, but faltered. So now I'm curious, like McDaniel, what kind of quarterback is he going to want? Like, because clearly he's going to have like the number one say on that. So I'm curious to see what his choice for a quarterback will be. Like, do you think this is a Kyler Murray team? or does he want something kind of different?
Um. Okay, and I think it really depends on like how, because I think of like the way the offense has been previously set up and the options that you still have in a Jalen Waddle and an A chain. It seems like it's heading in a direction, and I think this would be a logical choice of it to be a fast paced type of offense where it's like you have like so much speed, and I think you would need speed at the quarterback position. And Kyler Murray typically is one of those quarterbacks where you can start to look at that for. But I think at what I think this is a consideration is saying like, do you trust it if considering his injury history the past couple of years and say, well, like, do we still trust that he's that ooh, excuse me, that running weapon that he can be. And I like, and maybe it's like, all right, we bring Kyler in, and then we have another young quarterback that we draft to try to develop. But I think it's difficult to kind of say just where their heads at with that.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, they're gonna be really interesting. But I like this move. Like I really do like this move by them. Um, okay. The Giants, they fire their coach in the middle of the season, but they're keeping their GM. I don't agree with that. I think he's whatever. Um, do you want to talk about that at all? I feel like we've already talked about that coaching decision.
Yeah,
What
we'll
happened?
we'll skip over that one.
Okay. Okay. This is gonna be probably my favorite one to talk about. The Raiders. One and done with Pete Carroll after he had to fire basically all of his coordinators throughout the season. He should have fired his son, who was the offensive line coach at one point in the season, worst O line in the league. Um, yeah, was this not predictable? Like, are we all not sitting here like we were a little bit higher on the Ravens than most, I'll admit. So maybe like this is me being a hypocrite, but our expectation for the high point for this team was gonna be like maybe you win 6 games, right? But you're bringing in a quarter. You brought in Pete Carroll because you're like maybe we can have like a steady veteran coach kind of presence where it's like he's gonna set a standard. We know that he knows what he's doing, and maybe we can find a way to develop some players and have a base going forward with Pete Carroll. That clearly didn't happen. The Chip Kelly thing was a disaster, which, hey, I was a little, I tried to give him his credit as much as I
Oh
don't like the
no,
guy.
I'm so surprised.
Yeah.
Charles Kelly ruined another
I
setback
tried to
for the
be
franchise.
objective when they hired him. I was like, well, he was kind of cooking in college, which he should definitely go back to. But yeah, it just, whenever that man is in the NFL, nothing good happens. So you get rid of him, you got to get rid of special teams. And then now you're at a point where what's the future for this team?
Okay, I will say that like speaking from a standpoint of like everything, like this feel like I don't want to say it's the most ideal head coach landing spot,
This is the
but I,
worst spot.
okay, but and this, you gotta understand what I'm about to
It's
say.
them or the Browns.
I I still think it's the Browns. I think like if there is one job where you can say, hey, everything is fully open to like when I come in, I can take it in whatever direction I want. Like at least the Browns, right? Like they've kind of put themselves in a difficult hole of
Mm.
saying, all right, like you have a messy quarterback situation, like you have drama, like with the organization. Yes, the Raiders have the same thing. Like you, especially with how things went with Max Crosby towards the end of the season, where you're probably going to lose him now. But you think about, all right, you have the number one overall pick. You have what, like probably a shit ton more, 10 more draft picks in 2026. Like you can choose, like you're probably going to go quarterback there. You have a choice of what that looks like and setting the tone for this franchise. Like you have a lot of cap space. Like you can, it feels like, yes, it's not like it looks difficult, and it is difficult. Don't get me wrong. But I think like when I look at this, I say like, all right, like if I was a head coach and I was like, I like a challenge, but I like at the same time, I'm given full creativity. And if the Raiders are willing to give that, and Tom Brady is willing to give that, you look and say, hey, I can do this. Like if they're being patient with me, especially, I can do this. And that's how I look at it. Like I'm not saying it like it's not going to be easy for anybody to come in there and rebuild the Raiders, but I feel like there is like you have an Ashton Genty who's going to be in his second year. Like you choose whatever quarterback you want in the draft, and you can attack so many different things. Bring in all new coordinators. Like it feels like a clean slate, if that makes any sense. Like
No,
more than
I
anything.
listen. I don't want to take this like as if I'm saying like gold. Like it's the worst spot to go if you're a coach because it's the biggest challenge, I think.
Yes.
But at the same time, the sicko in me is like this could also be like the most fun challenge, like you
Yes,
said, to
exactly.
deal with. Where it's like, okay, yeah, like everything sucks, but it's on me to make it not suck as like the new coach that's in here. And it's not like we have any expectations. Like we are in full rebuild mode,
Yep.
and I get to be the guy who potentially gets to make this right. Like the sicko of me, like if I was playing Madden, I'd be like, oh yeah,
That is exactly
I'm
what I
going to
was
the
about to
Raiders.
say. I was
Yeah,
like, it is very much the same way at how I viewed and maybe not the same because they didn't have as much of a clean slate, but the Bears last year, where it's like you can
yeah.
go in, you have an amazing Caleb Williams at quarterback, everything like great receiving core, figure everything else out, take the lead on that, and you can have whatever direction you want. And that's how I look at it, where it's like, if, like
You got Genty and Bowers, and that's
yep,
probably going to be the only positives you have on this team. And that's not hyperbole. Like outside of those two, because I think we both agree, Max Crosby is probably gone. Like,
yeah,
and I think even if it's not a guaranteed thing, I think you should trade Max Crosby. Like I just straight up like he clearly wants to win. He's clearly frustrated with the organization, how they have ran things and how they've ran like how they've treated him. At this point, he's very upset with them clearly. And I think this is the time that time. If you're going to go into full rebuild, go into a full rebuild.
yeah.
Trade him, get whatever you can, right? Like, and you're the number one overall pick. And here's what I think you should do with that as well. And look, this is armchair GM or whatever you want to call it. Trade out of the number one overall pick. You just ransom it off, right? You can get the treasure trove of all the picks and players you want to get rid of that. Kinda. I'll say kinda because the court and the reason I say this and the reason why this also might hurt them is that this isn't the strongest quarterback class to be drafting for. Like Mendoza is probably the guy to go, and then just talks about like more. But like I will never trust a quarterback who's only started barely even a one season in college, right? With like it's shown time and time again, if you don't have a lot of experience in college as a starting quarterback, you're not most likely not going to work out in the NFL. Mitch
Come back to you on
Trubisky,
that. I need
Anthony
to watch
Richardson.
film. I need to watch film to really kind of
Well,
analyze
yeah,
it.
but
But yeah,
it's
that is a big
the
factor.
general consensus is this is not the greatest draft for quarterbacks, right? There may be one that everyone kind of wants, but I think if someone really, really wants Mendoza, like they really want him, you should make them trade for him and get the treasure trove of picks and or players that you can get out of that to go into this full rebound. You can sign a free agent or trade for like a mid-tier quarterback, right? Like there's always going to be like a Jacoby Brissett available, maybe even a Justin Fields. Maybe this is a
Jacoby
Kyler.
Brissett was hooping too. Like it might not be a bad shot.
But you also have to like it's gonna be hard to convince guys to go there because this was the worst O line in the league, and
I
that's part
mean,
of the rebuild. And that's why I don't think you should rush to bring in a young number one overall pick quarterback because while yes you can still have a season like Cam Ward did, do you want to go through like what Cam Ward did? Like you had to fire a coach halfway this season.
especially for this draft class. Like
Yeah, it's just like I would rather personally, I would think it would be better to just gather as much assets as you can year one into this rebuild. Start gathering cornerstone pieces that are not a quarterback so that when you do finally get one in there, you're ready to go off and running and you have that rookie window to then work with. It's bad practice in my mind, like my personal opinion, to start your rookie window at zero, right? Your rookie quarterback window should not be starting at zero where you're like, okay, we got a quarterback, we think, because you don't even know when a rookie quarterback comes in. And now we have to try to build around him throughout this rookie window to then take advantage of the money. No, you need to be signing players beforehand to set up your team well, like the Bears thought they did that first year with Caleb Williams, but they eventually kind of came around the second year, right? You build around the quarterback before he's even there so that you know that they have someone to pass to, they have a protection. He's already got Brock Bowers and Ash Gentry whenever this quarterback gets in there. So now it's just try to build up the trenches on both sides because you're most likely going to lose Max Crosby, and then go from there. That's just my mind. So that's where it's like the Raiders.
you've successfully talked me into it, and more because and it makes sense. Like besides like Joe Burrow, and the Bengals, like
Oh man, I guarantee, dude. Actually, that's a sneaky one. Tom Brady running things, and the way Joe Burrow's been talking.
okay, what I would you bring up a good point. What I was gonna say is that I don't think there's been an organization where they've drafted a quarterback and because we saw what happened where that was a situation they drafted a quarterback first and then they had an option for protection and went Jamar Chase, which they got to the Super Bowl. It worked for them. Besides that, I don't think there's ever been a situation that I can remember in the past couple of years where it's like you draft quarterback first and then it works out like because you went and got everything else and figured it out. It's been a grinded out build up type of process through the draft and then say all right, the quarterback is a cherry on the top and we're in a good place. And I very much view that with the Raiders, and I think like this will be a sign. Like once again, it's a sign of patience. I think like how patient are the Raiders willing to be with this and say like, all right, we're willing to sit with this. Max Crosby, he's probably going to have the most like. If there's any time to trade him, it's now, like before he gets too old. Like this is the time to get something for him and say, all right, like hit the hard reset. And if you're gonna reset, like pause, but hit it hard. And like just go from there. And I think like I agree with you in the sense that like this it seems like the best option for them.
Sorry, I was muted. Just imagine everything you can get for trading the number one overall pick and Max Crosby in the same offseason. Just imagine everything you could get for that.
Sam Presti is rubbing his hands right now, thinking about like he's probably giving them advice, like, "Hey, like
Hey, listen.
If I were you, but don't got to listen to me, but if I were you, this is how I would.
Hey, maybe they take up the a page of the Commanders book where they brought in Bob Myers to help them with their new regime change when they drafted Jaden Daniels and all that, and now he's helping the Sixers. But maybe you'd say like, "Hey, Sam Presti, you got a second? Like, can we talk real quick?"
I just want to call on the phone real quick and see if you could help me out with something.
Dude, being a good GM in any sport, like it really does open up like windows for like other opportunities, like even in other sports where it's like, hey, like what is your thoughts on this? Like you could be a consultant for any team. I mean, Bob Myers is doing it. Okay. Yeah, Raiders really interesting, man. But it's like I said, outside of Genty and Bowers, it's like, what else you got? You got Tom Brady as a part owner, I guess. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, next one. Cardinals fired our boy Jonathan Gannon. Kept their GM though. This felt right. Like this just felt like the move that needed to go. It was an unfortunate season for them. They hadn't won a game since like November 3rd or something like that. They ended a game on like an 8-game losing streak. The Kyler Murray thing just fell apart for them. I don't even. Yeah, this. They especially because this was a team that people thought could like be a playoff team going into the season. So for them to have the season that they've had is just like they regressed from the last year. And I know injuries play a part in that, but you also kind of just benched Kyler in general. Marvin Harrison Jr. was in and out of the lineup, but I still think he's good. Michael Wilson had a breakout season, but your run game fell apart. And part of that's because certain coaches left in the last offseason, didn't work out for you. And it's just, this is what happens, man. Like you get a few years into it. Your worst year is like your last year, it feels like basically. And it's just like, all right, man, like we it's time to move on. But they're another team where it's like their future's kind of murky because it's like, what are you going to do with the quarterback? Like what changes do you address first? Like if you bring if you're a coaching candidate, what makes you this vacancy attractive?
Okay, well, I'll start with the attractive stuff, and I think for the most part, I think the offense is a positive. Like the offense is a direction that you can lead in and say, all right, we have pieces in a Marvin Harrison Jr. when he's maximizing on the field. Michael Wilson has looked great for you. Trey McBride has been a great option for you. And then on the defensive end, you had Josh Sweat, who you signed, who had a great season. Shout out, former Eagle. Buda Baker is has always been consistent for them. Washington has always been holding it down pretty much on the defensive line. Like they have pieces, and I think in the positive directions. And yes, like injuries play a big role in that. Like Josh Sweat will probably be out longer than you'd hope for, but at the same time, it's like. This feels like it's murky and it's I think it's it's crazy to say this, but like I think it might be a good problem to have, like to come in and say, all right, like like we have these good pieces, but I don't know which way to attack because I think that offers you a lot of options for how you can attack this. And I think like they are a team where I would say like you're definitely much further along than the Raiders in terms of like. Being able to draft a rookie quarterback and say, all right, like let's develop you, let's try to work this thing out, and then just like saying, all right, like trust us, like we're also gonna try to build it because look, somebody's got to draft a quarterback, and I think like if there's one team that can be aggressive about it, I think the Cardinals can do that because they have these wide receiver options.
Yeah, I don't. They're one of the teams that just kind of confuses me the most going forward. Them and the Browns probably, but I don't know. They're less attractive as a spot that landed as a coach for me personally than I would think like some of the others. But all right, let's move on from them real quick because the Cardinals will be a team we definitely talk a lot more about like during the offseason.
We need to see a lot. Like we need to see where the direction is and where they're headed.
All right. Let's rapid fire some of the other like small changes that happened. The Commanders fired both their coordinators. Kind of weird, but understandable at the same time. I don't know why you would get rid of. To me, I would just get like rid of the head coach too at this point. But it's what it is. Cowboys fired their defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus. Obviously, you were like the second, if not the worst defense in the league.
Oh,
So
my fault. I'm supposed to be sad as an Eagles fan.
yeah. No, I was yeah, dude. Yes, it's yeah. Like, I'm gonna be upset when Raheem Morris is the defensive coordinator for the Cowboys. Um, I feel like I'm forgetting a change that happened. Is there anything else?
The Titans fired Callahan in October. So
Well, yeah, and I will say this: as a sicko, the Ravens or the Raiders are my number one coaching option. As a, I would love to coach the Titans for one reason only, and that is Cam Ward. If I am an offensive coach who thinks I'm the guy, like as a play caller, and I think I have it when it comes to like scheme and play calling and all that, I'm trying to get to the Titans to work with Cam Ward. I think their O line can show improvement. If I'm being honest, like it wasn't great, but I do think you have certain pieces there that you can work with going forward. The quarterback I think is going to be special, and you actually like your offensive pieces aren't that bad, honestly. Like I do think you have a bunch of like kind of like role players, but I think you're one like good like solid like number one receiver from being like a competent offense. The defense it's got some pieces, but there's stuff to work on there. But this is mainly a Cam Ward thing where I'm like, I want to work with Cam Ward if I'm an offensive play caller.
And I agree with you that they have Cam Ward who can be generational for them, but I think they need game changers, and I think that's what they're looking for, and that that comes from a mix of both free agency and the draft. Honestly, I think like this is a potentially, and once again, I'm going to do a lot more research. Trust me. Stay tuned for WHIP's draft show. I'm going to do a lot more research about that. But from what I gather, this is going to be one of the better wide receiver drafts. Like you can get or not better because I think last year was great.
Well, I mean, even like the Carnell Tate from Ohio State just declared. So it's you'll have options.
And that's why I look at it and say, like, all right, you have a good couple options, and especially we've seen Ohio State in like JSN, Emeka Egbuka, like it speaks for us. Marvin Harrison Jr. I skipped over him. There's a lot that I think they could attack in the draft, and they're one of the teams that I'm really interested to see. I'm really interested to see how all these how aggressive all these teams are. But I think the Titans and Cardinals in particular.
Yeah, I mean, because they're going to be the fourth pick in the draft, you could definitely get one of the better, if not the best receiver in the draft at that point. Because number one will probably be Mendoza, and then after that, I don't know. I need to do some more of my research on my own.
I'm gonna do a lot more research.
This is the year I've like. This will be the latest I've looked at a draft in a while when it comes to it, just because I've been paying attention to so much else, and I'm not doing the draft show this year. But, man, from everything I have been reading so far, it's gonna be a weird draft. It doesn't sound like it's a great draft for tackles either. So we'll see. Okay. Anything else we need to talk about with changes in coaching or GMs?
I don't think so.
Okay. If we miss anything, we'll get to it eventually. This is more just like a lot of this has been happening within the past 24 hours. So
yeah,
we'll get back to more. But we do need to move on.
By the time we start next week again, we'll probably be a couple more changes and fallout. So
yeah. All right. Before we move on, I think it's time to talk about awards.
It is
time to talk about awards and who we think we should. I don't know. Okay, because I think we're gonna have some fun conversations here, but we're gonna look at like MVP, Coach of the Year, things like that. Just give our quick thoughts on each of these awards and who we think are the best candidates for it. So Jay?
Okay, I'll start off by listing off the FanDuel odds for the awards. So starting with the pearl of them all, MVP. Matthew Stafford is currently in the lead right now, followed by Drake May, Trevor Lawrence bringing up the third, Justin Herbert at 4, Bo Nix, and then Caleb Williams. Who do you choose for MVP?
It's either Stafford or May for me, and there's conversations that have about both. Like May, the whole thing is like strength of schedule and the defenses that they played against, and like everyone's like talking about that. Who doesn't want May to win MVP, obviously? But at the same time, you play who's in front of you, right? Like we can't blame Drake May for torching bad defenses if that's what was set out before him. And it's still impressive to do that in the NFL in general. 14 wins and you just played out of your mind. But Matthew Stafford obviously also has his thing. I think they probably have the best. They have an argument for the best offense in the NFL, and that's being led by a quarterback at that age who had questions about his back and his injuries coming into the season, but he's able to play the whole time and be productive doing it. Didn't throw that many interceptions and was productive with Puka and Devontae Adams, and they were able to win some clutch games. But they also had some confusing losses at the same time. So I don't know. I'm gonna lean Drake May on this probably.
Okay, so and this is another question I have with this is that you mentioned Puka and Devonta Adams as well. Like, do you think that's a knock? I think these are things that it's not a knock to have good players. Like you're if you're a good organization, you surround your player.
I mean, yeah, you weren't going to knock Mahomes for having Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce when they were in their prime.
Exactly. But I think this is the thing is that they're going to look at like Drake May's, help and say, well, Stephon Diggs is his leading receiver, and then you look over and see Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, and you go, well, it's comparable, but and then the strength of schedule stuff, like I'm gonna go Stafford on this one. I think like also just because like. I know that it's not supposed to be a part of it, but I think they're going to be like, well, he's getting older. Drake May's younger. He'll have plenty of opportunities to compete with this, and especially, every year they just had one of the better records in the AFC. He's going to have a tougher schedule next year. It'll be a reevaluate type of thing. So I'm going to lean Stafford on this one.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
If Jonathan Taylor had continued on the road that he was on for the first half of the season, do you think he would have a stronger case for MVP?
Absolutely. Hell, even if JSN hit the 2,000-yard mark, I think he'd have a better case in this as well too.
Yeah, like it wasn't that these guys had terrible like MVP cases. I just think these are some of the weaker cases that we've seen in previous years. Like last year, like the Josh Allen Lamar Jackson conversation got like heated because it was like they both had strong cases. It was like who had the slight like edge, and this one is like who has a slight edge, and you're kind of like. I don't know. Like, yeah, it's just like we're talking about like strength of schedule and stuff like that. I'm just like, whatever. Like, this feels like the MVP I've cared the least about in recent years. Yeah. And maybe that's also because I'm just so tired of like, who are they going to say was the best quarterback this year? Cool, whatever. Like, the MVP award in the NFL has just become so diluted and like meaningless to me at some points. Like for the NFL now, where I'm just like, who cares? Like, you're just going to give it to who y'all deem was the best quarterback this year, and we're going to move on. So, I don't know. All right, what's next?
Speaking of JSN, Offensive Player of the Year. JSN is the favorite, followed by Puka Nacua, Christian McCaffrey, Matthew Stafford, and Drake May.
Okay, I actually kind of think it should be CMC. He had nearly 2,000 all-purpose yards, like 17 touchdowns. He was the engine of that offense. You could make the same case for JSN, but there were other factors there. Like CMC was like that offense. Think about everyone that was injured, including the quarterback. Like they were winning with Mac Jones, and a large part of their wins when they were going through all this stuff was CMC carrying this team. So I might like it'll probably be JSN, but I kind of want to lean CMC. And I love JSN, so like I'm not gonna be upset if he wins it. Like I think he's sick.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I agree with you.
Did I convince you?
What happened?
Did I convince you?
No, you did not convince me.
Okay.
I still think this is JSN. I think the year he had was phenomenal. And yes, like that. Like I think, as much as the MVP race has been kind of like, I think the Offensive Player of the Year, like because it's like, all right, quarterbacks and then everybody else, like, and naturally is always like pretty exciting. Like the fact that Jonathan Taylor wasn't anywhere in the top 5, like that. Well, he had a difficult second half of the season, but like it still says a lot about how. I think consistency plays a part of this, and I think like CMC and JSN and Puka Nacua all had consistency throughout the season. So I really wouldn't have any problem with either, like all three of them.
If Puka hadn't gotten hurt and had a bit of play a few more games, I think he would probably had a stronger case.
I do think it's like a JSN, CMC, and then Puka type of situation. I think that'll be the final like voting if I had to guess. I'm just going to lean JSN just because of the sheer numbers and what he was able to do, where they knew he was a threat every week and it didn't make a difference.
Yeah, he was fucking amazing this year. A guy who had mainly played in the slot in his previous seasons, and then he's handed the keys after they trade DK Metcalf to be like, you're our number one guy, and he switches to the outside for the most part in his lines, and he took full advantage of it and was just, I mean, everything that they could have wanted and more, honestly. So shout out to him. What's next?
All right, defensive player of the year. We we know who defensive player of the year is.
Yeah, it's Myles Garrett.
Okay. So
Yeah.
Myles Garrett is the heavy favorite because of course
I am curious to see who the other options are.
So, and that's what, and this is what I'm going to ask you is like, I'm going to list off these names, and obviously these are betting odds, so bear with me. These are people who don't know ball. But
Damn.
well, relatively, for the most
Oh,
part.
yeah, I got you.
Who do you think like maybe deserves a bit more recognition as like a second place option? Okay, Myles Garrett, number one, heavy favorite. Is that 50,000? Whatever. Brian Burns 2, Danielle Hunter 3, Nick Bonito 4, Will Anderson Jr. 5, and then Aiden Hutchinson.
Will Anderson.
Think he deserves to be higher?
Yeah, I think he should be the second.
Do you? And I think this is. I think having Danielle Hunter there as well, like it very. You wouldn't understand soccer, but it's a Ballon d'Or thing. Like, and when you have so many different options, like when you're, and I'm bringing Barcelona into this because I think Barcelona and soccer they do an MVP award. It's called the Ballon d'Or, but it goes throughout like all of soccer, so it counts national team and whatever team you play, and everything. So one of the biggest issues that like one of their players didn't win the Ballon d'Or is because on the other side on the wing and an attacking player was another great player, so they kind of cancel each other out because the votes were split between them. And I think that is a similar situation that kind of hurts like Will Anderson Jr. here, where it's like, all right, you have Daniel Hunter on the other side, like you're getting just as much pressure, so people are running like one way or another, they're kind of getting sandwiched. But yeah, I hate the excuse of saying, well, he's young, he'll win it next year, but like Will Anderson Jr., like I think he's going to be someone that every year we say,
oh, he's a special player.
Yeah,
Yeah,
every year he's going to be in the defensive player of the year like race. So
that's fair.
all right, we'll go to the rookies now. Offensive rookie of the year, T Mac leads the pack, followed by Jackson Dart, Tyler Shugg, and Trayvon Henderson. Oh,
T-Mac.
and then RJ Harvey and Ashton Genty follow them.
Yeah, I'm gonna go T-Mac. He broke 1,000 yards. He was clutch for this team. He was just a consistent force for them on offense, and I don't think they would be where they are without him.
Okay, I agree with you. Is there anyone else that you think deserves a bit more recognition, or think should be higher in this?
For offensive rookie, damn. I mean, Ibuka fell off in the end. Not really his total fault.
Where's Emeka Egbuka on these? Look. I don't think Ashton Genty, RJ Harvey, and yes, I'll say Trayvon Henderson had a great year. Tyler Shugg did not have a better year than Emeka Egbuka, where he would be considered over him offensive rookie of the year wise. And
Jackson Dart, no.
I
Didn't start the year and got injured.
Yes, I think Jackson Dart, like I think his media team does a lot for him. I think he's
a New York quarterback. Yeah.
I think he could be a good player, and I think there's a lot like to him. But it just feels like a lot of the hype comes from he's a swaggy white boy that's out there, playing for the Giants and occasionally makes a couple of good plays. He got a good win against the Eagles. I'll give him that. But
swaggy white boys scare me, man. Look at 9.
yeah.
Yeah, it's fun to act that way until you get hit in the mouth, and then you play like ass, and then now you're kind of on the other side of the joke.
Yeah. All right. Defensive Rookie of the Year. Carson Schlesinger is the favorite, followed by James Pierce Jr. and then Nick Emmanwori as the third option.
And that would be my pick, Emmanwori.
Emmanwori?
Yeah. He didn't even start the year. I think he missed like the first 2 or 3 games.
Yeah.
The difference of that defense when he's in versus out of it is crazy for the impact that he has as a rookie DB already for what is an elite defense. Like he's a starter on an elite defense that like he makes better as a rookie. And Schlesinger, he was awesome. I was a big fan of his coming out of UCLA. I thought he was probably the best linebacker coming out of this draft besides Jahad Campbell. He's sensational, man. Like Emmanwori is. Like I think it should go to him.
See, okay, you're doing a lot of great PR work because you're convincing, and making me lean towards other players. But I like, I
I mean, dude, look at his plays even just during against the
yeah,
49ers like a few days ago. He's all over the field.
I I think I'm still going to lean Schlesinger, just because of consistency throughout the season. And yes, like Emmanuel Worry has also like been pretty consistent and has been a big difference maker when he's on the field for Seattle. But I do agree in the sense that like I think it is like and this is it always confuses me like how much they weigh like competing
I
teams
I
versus like
think the Browns should only they don't even deserve to get any award, but Miles Garrett played well enough that he earned his reward. I don't think the Browns should be rewarded for anything else that they've done. Maybe that's a personal thing, but it's obviously a
yeah
personal thing.
yeah
But
obviously that's definitely a personal thing,
it's
but
obviously a
I
personal
like
thing.
I have to agree with you in some sense, and I do think like I think it's going to go to Schlesinger, and he had a great year. But I will say I think this like, and I'm obviously I'm not looking at votes because the votes aren't out, but like I think like this is going to be like he's going to blow it away opposed to Nick where he isn't going to get enough recognition when it comes to this, which is I
It is
think
what it is.
yeah. All right. Um. Yeah. Okay. Okay, we'll do Coach of the Year. Coach of the Year.
Ooh,
Vrabel leads the pack, followed by McDonald, and then Ben Johnson, and then Liam Cohen.
damn. Because so this one's hard. Like this is a difficult one.
I think this is the hardest one.
Weirdly enough, well, maybe it's not weird if you listen to the show. I think I might lean Liam Cohen.
Yeah.
I'm like what he's done for this team has been so impressive throughout the entire time. Like basically, I'm not gonna say reviving Trevor Lawrence's career, but saving it in a way because of all the crap he had to go through with Urban Meyer, Doug Peterson. And like I said, I don't completely like I've been on Trevor Lawrence Island now for a few years, but like what he's been able to do for that offense in general, where it's like you had the Brian Thomas Jr. stuff going on, you bring in Jacoby Myers, he makes all that difference. The run game that he orchestrated, which was impressive when he was a coordinator with the Bucks, and then he brings that over to the Jaguars, and he's able to do really, really well with that with Etienne and Tutin, and then I just the team in general is clearly they come to play every single week, man. Like he's got this team ready to go. They've been one of the better teams in that conference throughout the especially the second half of the season. They had impressive wins throughout. Yeah, man. I think the turnaround that he's been able to get with the Jaguars, I think that's been the most impressive.
I'm gonna go Ben Johnson on this one. I
That's
like
fair.
very very much for the basically everything you said about Liam Cohen could be said about Ben Johnson, and I think like especially
Yeah,
like when it comes to like rejuvenating the soul of like the Bears, which to be fair there isn't a lot there to rejuvenate. Like he came in and they have not just new life but like a new sense of like culture there, and I think it once again applies to both of them. So I think like as much as the numbers like and the odds are like Vrabel and yes, like Mike McDonald's had a great year with the Seahawks as well, and pushing him to the edge, and Vrabel's
all
had a
I'll
great
say
year.
all four of those guys are deserving.
Yeah, I just think like the from you have to consider where these coaches took over, and where they are now, and I think Ben Johnson and Liam Cohen especially like seeing what the past years have been for both organizations to then now be both competing playoff teams where you have a legitimate chance to make a run. It says a lot about both of them as head coaches. So I'm gonna go Ben Johnson on that one.
I like it.
All right. The final one, unless I'm missing one, is and this is a weird one, but I think like we'll talk about it. Comeback Player of the Year.
Yeah.
So CMC leads the pack right now, followed by Trevor Lawrence, Aiden Hutchinson, Dak Prescott, and um, and
Who is it,
fifth on odds, Philip Rivers.
brother? No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. Just because his old ass went out there and threw the ball around a few times, did they win with him? I don't think so. Like, fuck that. Dude, if he even sniffs this award, I'm gonna be pissed off. What is he coming back from?
Retirement.
Yeah, retirement. Okay, cool. Like, I don't. No, I'm not doing that because if he had come back and rattled off some wins and maybe give even this team a playoff chance, hell yeah, true. But he went out there and threw a bunch of ducks. and said some cool things afterwards, talking about like believing yourself and the power of friendship, probably, and I don't know whatever else you would hear on One Piece if you watch that show. But like I just whatever, man. Like I'm so tired of that with him. I said it when it happened. It was a cool thing, but I'm not gonna praise this man for playing ass football. Like, cool, you were out there, you did some. It was cool that you were out there. Congratulations, that was very brave of you. You didn't play well. Uh, God, that pisses me off. And then the problem with this award is like, okay, what are you coming back from? Playing like ass or
Yeah.
like injury?
Like yeah. Okay. Like
Maybe CMC. I guess.
I
I
think
hate
like
this award.
yeah. I think it. I'm going CMC as well. I like like Trevor Lawrence. What like he was an average quarterback before. Liam Cohen did a great job kind of getting him to the next level, but at the same time, I'm not going like all right, like it was significant enough where it's like award worthy. So that's why I think I'm gonna go CMC. One point.
I think they need to change this to most improved rather than comeback player, because comeback player is always like, because you always have to ask the question. It's like, it's in the name. What are you coming back from? If you were just ass, like, fine. But even the injury stuff, it's like CMC. Yeah, he dealt with injuries last year, but I don't know. Like, what? It's not like he's coming back and we're like surprised that he's good.
Yeah.
Like, it's Christian McCaffrey. Like, yeah, there was worries about his legs and his knees, but like, if he's healthy, are we surprised that he played this way? I'm not.
Yeah,
And
it's
plus, he's also out there. Whatever, whatever. I hate that award. I guess I'll go with. I don't even remember who I said.
CMC.
I despise this award.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, that's a bad one to end it on, but that is that is.
Yeah, sorry. I kind of put a
will do.
damper on that one, but all right. Before we move on to the games this week, which I promise we're going to get to, I know we've been recording long, so thank you everybody for sticking with us.
Yeah, thanks
But
for sticking
obviously,
with us. It's
we love
long.
talking ball, so
There's
yeah.
a lot to cover, and we were trying to figure out what was the best way to break this up. But awards need to be talked about now because if not, we'll get people being like, "Well, you saw what Trevor Lawrence didn't do in the playoffs," and it's
Yeah,
like,
and that leaves a bad taste or like in people's mouths, and you're like, oh, okay. But okay, I did want a quick conversation because we're about to talk about the playoff games that are happening. It's been a very weird kind of NFL season where this feels like there's been more parity within the NFL. It feels like there's not one team where you can hone in on them and be like, this is clearly the number one true Super Bowl contender out of everybody. Like even the one seeds, you're like, well, there's ways to get at them. And for both the one seeds, I think that's their offense. But it's it's just been kind of a weird year, man. Where like you would think like there was expectations of like the Chiefs and the Eagles, obviously the two previous like Super Bowl winners and contenders, to come out and like still be that kind of team, but they've kind of stumbled as the season goes along. The Chiefs definitely stumbled, and they're not even in the playoffs. And as always, there's a bunch of new teams in the playoffs, like six different ones, but they've all got their different like identities and like faults, but also like strengths to a point where it's like I don't know. It's like every team seems to have like their identity that they lean into, but there's no one true team where you're like, well, like their entire team is like 100% complete, and we can rely on like I think I have the most confidence in this team to make it to the Super Bowl and win it. There's not one that I can confidently say like has that ability. I don't know if you agree with that, but
yeah. I mean, like I literally ran through, and I'll do it again this week. It's like running through each team and saying like, here's the reason why you won't win the Super Bowl. Like
yeah,
Seattle, Sam Darnold. We don't know if he could be the person that can lead him through it. But if he's at that level, hell, they're basically unstoppable.
they got a
But
shot.
yeah, it's an if. Rams, I think like it's been execution, especially down the fourth quarter. They've lost like a couple of fourth quarter games, where it's like it just wasn't like you didn't do enough to get over the hump. We saw it against the Eagles, and we saw that throughout the remainder of the season since. Carolina, you're just not ready yet. The lack of experience, and I think a lot of key difference makers, especially on your defense, like you have a Derek Brown, but other than that, like I don't think there's another difference maker on that defense.
J.C. Horn, hold on now, J.C.
Okay,
Horn.
J.C. Horn, but like, yeah, okay,
I get what you're saying though. Yeah.
yeah, like I don't want to say like a difference. Say, oh, well, a true difference maker, but like someone that can impact like every facet of the game.
Yeah.
Green Bay injuries. You are you are injury riddled. Tucker Kraft, Micah Parsons, and Jordan Love is. I don't know consistency wise if he can show you something good in the playoffs. But either way, injuries are so crucial for them, especially on the defensive end. Bears, I actually would also say the same thing with experience. Like how will Caleb Williams kind of fare in the playoffs? And you don't really know that, especially with so much of your team being young.
I do think the Bears'
Yeah.
difference from the Panthers though is that like the Bears coach has at least like
Yes.
called games in the playoffs and like been there for like big moments.
Yeah, and I think like you also still like I mentioned difference makers, like they have a Caleb Williams like on their team who is a difference maker for them, and we've seen him win games down the stretch. But I think winning games down the stretch in a regular season and the playoffs are truly different, and I think we'll see that.
Yeah.
49ers. Well, okay, where do I start with
Defense.
that? Yeah, defense.
For me, it's mainly the defense.
Yeah, but I think it's defense, and yes, like they've recovered pretty well with injuries. They still don't have a defensive, player of the year candidate in Fred Warner. Like that is
Yeah.
like he dictates so much of their defense, and I think that's the reason why we've seen that they do it. And also, we saw this past week offensive consistency. And especially against the Eagles, if
The
it's
strength of the Eagles right now is their
yeah,
defense.
straight to the Eagles is their defense, and especially the defensive line where you have a Jalen Phillips, you have a Jalen Hunt who's playing really well, who's by the way leading the team in interceptions, which I know it's mostly because
And I think
people are-
pressure.
yes. Or he because I saw they posted a stat. It was like he leads the team in sacks and interceptions.
Awesome.
Naturally, the first time ever. But I see people say like, "Oh, this is an issue. Like, we need to see more from our DBs." Nobody's throwing the ball at Quinyon Mitchell. Nobody is throwing it because it is like there's no point of it. He's
And when they do, nothing's happening.
yes, it is stupid to say like, "Oh, he needs to get more interceptions." They're not throwing his way. What do you want him to do? Like,
That's like yelling at Richard Sherman or like Pat Pete to get some more.
Yeah.
It's like they're not getting thrown at. Like what do you want them to do?
what do you mean Darrell Revis doesn't have a double-digit interception season? What? Like,
Like that bro lives as the deep.
Trayvon
He
Diggs
lives
has-
as the
Trayvon
receiver
Diggs and
shadow.
Deron Bland have fooled y'all.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but San Fran defense, and speaking of the Eagles, offense. The exact it'll be fun against the 49ers, and we'll talk about it. But offensive consistency, and I'll just say Kevin Patullo. AFC, Denver. I would say Bo Nix in the offense. I think I call out Bo Nix in particular because I think we've seen it this season. He leads this offense, and they don't really step up until the fourth quarter of games where we really see them kind of turn it on. And I think it's difficult to turn it on when you're going up against great defenses who are built for the moments and fourth quarters where they live upon big moments and making big plays and disrupting quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Buffalo, there's a couple of things I can say here. I'll say first on the offensive end, I think weapons for Josh Allen is a big issue, and I think we've seen that when Josh Allen doesn't have weapons, he starts to try to do the Josh Allen Superman stuff, and that can lead to interceptions, and he's playing more dangerously, which you talked about it before. Like it's a negative and a positive. It's a double-edged sword where you want to see him play a bit unconscious, but to a degree. And I think when he doesn't have these weapons, we see him go in the negative direction of it, of trying to do everything himself. We see interceptions, we see fumbles, and we see negative plays. And then on the defensive end, their run defense has gotten better, but I feel like there were times, a couple of times this season, where they were just getting ran through. And then, okay, Jacksonville. I guess similar in experience, I think is another thing. And I think like it's kind of a loose hole to poke at them. But I do think like when you see that playoff experience really matters, and we'll talk about that more. Chargers, Justin Herbert, can he get you over the hump? Like that? That's
Can they
one
even
thing.
protect him?
Yeah, and that's another thing where he's coming into the playoffs with injuries because the offensive line doesn't protect him. And then I still think you have a relatively inexperienced receiving core. Like Quentin Johnson has kind of turned it on this season, but it's not like you just don't know what it's going to be like in the playoffs and if he can do that because he was a couple string of games where he just didn't have any catches. So we'll see. New England. You didn't play really anybody much going into, and yes, you did play the Bills, but the Bills aren't the typical Bills that we would expect to see, this season. So I think strength of schedule it's another thing, and you could also say the same thing I said about Buffalo, where you need weapons in the playoffs to make big moments, and I think it's going to be interesting to see if. Obviously Drake May isn't the type of Superman quarterback where he can turn it on like Josh Allen, so he needs these weapons to step up. Houston, offensive consistency, and the offensive line. I say offensive consistency, but the consistency starts with the offensive line because they've let CJ Stroud get jumped some games. Like their defense is going to make this close regardless. But how much time CJ Stroud has is going to be interesting. And I feel like I said this for a lot of teams, especially in the AFC. Like they also have another young receiving core besides I'm blanking. I can literally see his face in my mind. And Nico Collins.
Yeah.
Besides Nico Collins, they especially had the two young rookie draft picks of Jalen Noel and
Higgins.
Jaden Higgins. They both have started to step up, but I really want to see what their performances turn to like in the playoffs and turn up because Nico Collins can't be the only weapon. And then finally, Pittsburgh.
Can you stop the run? Can you get enough offense?
Can you stop the run and can you get enough offense? And yes, thankfully they do have DK Metcalf coming back, but it still doesn't change that besides DK Metcalf, and especially when you go up against a Derek Stingley Jr., and then even on the other side of Kamari Lassiter, who's a ball hawk, like you're gonna need more than that. And especially more than DK. So that's where we'll end that at.
Yeah. Yeah. So after all that, sorry, I didn't even sound like cat. Of all those teams, who are you most confident in each conference?
Okay.
I'm not asking you to pick who you think is representing them in the Super Bowl. I'm just saying, like, who gives you the best like confidence?
I'm going to say NFC Seattle because, yes, like Sam Darnold can play bad or not even bad. He can if Sam Darnold plays at least mediocre, average, like he goes out there and doesn't turn the ball over, plays it safe, Seattle wins the game and can make it to the Super Bowl and be that good where it's like they don't have to do too much. Like it is very much just maintained and be a game manager. Like I said, like I've said this before. I think game manager has been blown out of proportion to say like, oh, you're just not good, and they use it as a term like that. No, like for me, it means like you're going out there, you're making the winning plays to win the game for us. You aren't turning the ball over. You are playing the way we need you to win the game. And I think Sam Darnold has the opportunity to be that for Seattle. So I think if there's one team where I look at it and say, well, your hole isn't really like it isn't like a gaping hole of that's an issue. It's like if Sam Darnold goes out there and plays. If Sam Darnold goes out there and plays average, they have a good chance of making a big run.
Yeah.
And in the AFC, like it's crazy that like I don't think Jacksonville has a lot of holes. Like when I was like trying to think of like, well, like what can hold them back? Like I really just it to me it comes like inexperience, and I think like yes, like that does make a big difference, but I don't know. Maybe it's
I'm with you on the AFC pick. I'm with you on that.
It's like, I feel weird saying it, but like I don't see a lot of holes in Jacksonville. Like
if their offense can keep being what they're doing, and their defense can get pressure, and they turn the ball over, like they have good linebackers, DBs are good enough. Like Jordan Lewis is a great slot corner. Like you could make the case that the Jaguars are the more complete. Like they have the highest floor, I would say, like of like. Roster wise,
which is crazy to say when you consider where they were last season. Like it's weird.
And then this may be us underselling the Patriots.
Yeah,
and like
I definitely think it is.
Yeah, but I think I like what the Jaguars got going on.
Part of me wants to like you talk about sickle picks, and I want to say, all right, if this offensive line for Houston is able to protect CJ Stroud even a little bit. Houston's going to be a problem.
Let me tell you this right now. If we get, oh man, it could be like a Jaguars Texans AFC Conference Championship. That'd be sick. I don't know. Like, part of me is rooting for the Texans because I just want to see what this defense can do. Like, I just want to see if this defense is this good because I do think they're that good. And to the Texans' offensive credit, like they have been playing more consistent like during this win streak that got them to the playoffs. It didn't even start. It started with Davis Mills. So, I mean, that's a big credit to their offensive coordinator to, like, change. Like, screw it. Like, our offensive line sucks. Let's figure this out. And they've gotten a little bit better, but they're still probably the worst O-line in the playoffs. The Steelers can argue with that, or the Chargers too. But I just, yeah. I'm rooting for that defense because they just hit the hell out of people, and I want to see them fuck some shit up. And then for the NFC, I'm there with you with the Seahawks. Like I've obviously been bullish on them all year, mainly because their defense and JSN and all that. But part of me is leaning Rams because of Sean McVay, because of Stafford and the weapons that they have at the receiver, and even Kyron Williams, right? And then the defense with Shula, like they play well enough. Like we know what the D line and the front seven can do as long as the secondary can like hold up enough. Like I don't know. For some reason, I'm like leaning towards the Rams winning that, but it's close.
I could definitely see that, and I think they're another team when I look at like and I go
Sean
back
McVay is
to
a big part of me leaning that way.
yeah.
By the way, like him and
I'm
Stafford.
when I go back to like the whole holes analogy, and it's like you're trying to pick holes in these poke holes in these teams to say like this is why you won't win. It's like all right, like you're like, oh, your defense maybe, but like other than that, like there really isn't much. But even then, their defense is still good. Like their defensive line is great. I think the one thing you're looking at is like, all right, DBs, can you hold up against some of these game changer receivers that you're going to go against in the NFC and in the AFC if you make it to the Super Bowl? So I think they're another team where it's like I wouldn't I wouldn't be surprised if they make a big run.
Hmm. All right, well, let's get more into the games then. For this week, for our matchup previews, we're gonna talk about every playoff game. So that we're not gonna but we'll still pick our favorites from each conference. So we're gonna go through talk each playoff game, but we're gonna have our favorite or matchup when it comes to game, unit, and player. Still one from each conference for these playoff games. So let's get into it, man. Do you want to start with AFC or NFC?
Let's do AFC.
All right, AFC. We'll go through each game, but let's start with what your game of the week is for the AFC.
All right, my game of the week for the AFC, I'm gonna say, I'm gonna say Houston, Pittsburgh. I think like they really kind of like Pittsburgh especially kind of surprised me, and I know it was really they turned it on in the fourth quarter, but as it's changed, that I still think that they were pretty impressive, and I was like, oh, like they may have a bit more, and especially the offense, like being able to. Like and it's funny, I saw that they named Kenny Gainwell like their team MVP, and I think like that
He's
is
been
like
good.
it's crazy to say like you're essentially second string receiver or running back. I said
Well, second
receiver.
string receiver at
I
times
was
too.
I was about to say like potentially even receiver. That was a Freudian slip. It works still. He's been that good for then where he's been crucial, but at the same time like it feels like this is. Feels like a take old Yeller out to the shed type of moment where it's like
Jesus. All right.
Aaron Rodgers is about to go up against this Texas defense, which has the potential has the potential to just line. There's no way to not say pause with all this. Just line them up and just take shots on them all game, and and then like not only that, but like a lot of what worked against the Ravens is quick action in the run game, because you don't want to have Aaron Rodgers sitting back there for too long, and you want to establish some type of run game to mix in some RPOs or whatever that looks like. And I see that being very hard to try to do against the Texans defense, who is great at stopping the run and even better at stopping the pass when you have these two great DBs and then even bigger pressure coming from your defensive line, and then you consider the linebackers who are great at just getting downfield and making tackles. Like it feels like this is like Pittsburgh's worst nightmare offensively.
It's anybody's.
Yes, but like I think especially Pittsburgh, who have come into this like being like our offense is our weakest part, and we're trying to just rely on our defense. And you look on the other side. Speaking of their defense, TJ Watt is back. You obviously probably not 100%, but you're still thankful he's out there making an impact. But it's not just him. Like Cam Hayward's playing at a great level, even at his age. He made some big plays for them in the Ravens game, especially. Then you have Alex Highsmith, like Joey Porter Jr. You mentioned has had a really sneaky, underrated season. Like they have a lot of great pieces, so I could see this being like a really just sloppy defensive game. But I think like it's what football is, and I think I love the occasional sloppy defensive game, and especially in the playoffs
Oh,
when it's
I
against,
love it.
especially when it's against like good teams. Like I don't want to see a sloppy, no disrespect, but Titans Raiders game on Thursday Night Football. But I'd rather see I'd sit down and watch a Houston Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I agree that this one would be
a lot of fun. I actually had my unit matchup for the AFC was in this game because I have the Steelers secondary against the Texans, basically just their passing attack. Because I want to see, man, like if can the Steelers sell out and just say like we're not going to let you run on us like a lot of teams think they can, and it's not like the Texans have like a fantastic run game. So can they do enough where we're like we're going to shut down this run game with not having to send too many people on the line, and can they disrupt the passing attack enough and cover well enough? All right, so anyways, yeah. So going to the Steelers secondary versus Texas wide receivers, I'm looking at like Joey Porter and Ramsey and guys like that, like these DBs. Can they put like a stop to any explosive plays that may go to Nico Collins or these other younger, speedy guys? Right? Are you able to stop them for anything like that and giving your offense a chance to like fight in this game? Because we know that the Texans defense is going to give them plenty of the offense for the Texans plenty of chances. Can the Steelers match that intensity and keep this a close game till the end, like they just did with the Ravens, and just give Aaron Rodgers a chance to like win this game? So that's kind of what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's move to the NFC though. Or well, I didn't give my game for the AFC. I don't think it should be a surprise. I got the Jags and the Bills. Look, man, I just these are two offenses that can like pop off in at any moment. And then it's just kind of like a test to see like whose defense is gonna like step up more here. Are the Jaguars gonna be able to cause turn? I think the Jaguars should be able to get turnovers in this game because Josh Allen's probably gonna have to press a bit here because we've talked enough about his receiving core. Even though he's got Brandon Cooks and it's looked okay or a little bit better at times, but the Bills are a running team first. I feel like with James Cook. I mean, he is one of the best running backs in the league this year. The O line has done a good job protecting him, or like pushing for him. But like he leads the league in what's it called, yards before contact this year. James Cook does. So I just want to see if the Bills can stop that. And I just think this will probably be one of the more entertaining games. Like this could end up being a shootout.
Yeah.
If we're looking at it.
I
Just
think
because of Josh Allen, what like as we were just talking about the Jaguars, and like I do have some faith in their defense, like their pass rushers and Hines Allen as well as Trevon Walker, and then their linebackers are really good, and like they have some pieces in the secondary. But Josh Allen can still be Josh Allen at times and go crazy and make these explosive plays. So I just want to see what this could and potentially be like a very high scoring game.
Yeah, it is crazy that even with all of the Josh Allen stuff and all this, I think James Cook plays the most crucial role for the Bills.
100%.
Because I think like if he's able to get started, it takes so much pressure off of Josh Allen as a quarterback to not. You don't have to put on a Superman cape. You just have to talk about doing enough to win the game. But at the same time, what is enough to win the game when your Buffalo defense is it's been struggling, and then like they've had moments where it's like, all right, like you're seeing why they're able to compete in the AFC as one of the top teams, and then you see other times where they're just getting run on. You're like, well, like which one are you going to get? And I think that'll be really interesting as something I want to see from them.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Okay, before let's see how do I do this. All right, let's go your unit matchup for the AFC.
Yeah. So I was just actually kind of hitting on it, which is the Buffalo run game versus the Jaguars defense. I think like it's pretty simple. Like if James Cook is able to get things started, he's going to dictate a lot of this matchup. And I think how well Jacksonville is able to stop him is how well Jacksonville is able to control the pace of this game and be able to really not allow Buffalo to have these these Buffalo comebacks, these superhero moments where they, no matter how much they're down, they find ways to come back in the games. Like this is a way, if they're able to get out and like continue to really force Josh Allen to throw the ball, which is kind of crazy to say. But who is he throwing to? I think that's a crucial part. And yes, they've shown glimpses where they're they're mossing Eagles DBs and stuff, but I really don't think it's going to be sustainable in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think the Bills are going to have a tough time with this offense. I think just they haven't been the best tackling defense this year, and I think Cohen does a great job of setting up these runs early in the game, and then like that can then evolve into a better play down the line for them in the same game. Like he does a great job of setting things up for later on in the game on offense. But part of that is Trevor Lawrence, and it's not just Trevor Lawrence having a clean pocket to work with, but I think they may have trouble with Trevor Lawrence outside the pocket too. He's still doing that thing where he's rolling out to his left and making some crazy throw or making the right play. It's just I don't know. Also in the Bills secondary, who can cover Jacoby Myers? And I'm not going to sit here and say like a Jacoby Myers is an elite receiver, but he's a really good receiver. He's been their best receiver on this team since they traded for him. Like he's made a huge difference for them. I don't know. I don't trust anybody on the Bills secondary to cover these guys. If I'm being honest, even Brian Thomas Jr. Like Brian, this could be a big Brian Thomas Jr. game. Like he should be able to get himself open for some explosive plays in this, depending on how the Bills play him, obviously. But but he's not like the number one guy they're going to be covering like that. It's got to be Jacoby.
Yeah.
So, and then you got guys like Parker Washington and Brenton Strange who can work things over the middle for you. So, I'm pretty bullish on the Jaguars in this game, but I do think like the James Cook and Josh Allen factor in this could keep it close. All right, let's move on. So we've talked about Bills, Jaguars, Texans, Steelers. Let's talk about the other AFC games before we move on. Which the only one is the Chargers and the Patriots. This could be a good test for Drake May. Didn't they play each other early in the season? Didn't they? But
I'm blanking. I don't know.
I can't remember. I can't. For some reason, I feel like they did. But we should know that. That's us. But this game is interesting to me, man, because I feel like Drake May going against this defense, like even though the Chargers defense can kind of like they're a good passing defense and they're able to stop like some explosive plays from happening and they're not going to allow you to beat them on the edge. But I think this is a Patriots game where we could see Drake May kind of pop off. Like I know they're going to be, well, are they going to be without Stephon Diggs? Is that confirmed? That's a whole weird thing going on right now too. That's a big factor in this, man, because if Drake May is only out there throwing it to like Pop Douglas and Booty and guys like that, like that can make a big difference in this, but he still has, former Charger Hunter Henry and Henderson, and like I do think
they did not play the Chargers this season.
Okay, but so this could be honestly the toughest defense the Patriots will have gone against so far this year. So this is a good first test for them in the first round of the playoffs to see like, okay, we had a great regular season. Everyone's saying the stuff about us. I was speaking for Drake May there, but everyone's talking about the Patriots and how they had this easy schedule. The Chargers, not that they're like some super team, but their defense has been pretty damn good for the past couple seasons since Jesse Minter got there. So I'm curious to see how the Patriots attack that zone coverage that they like to use because they use a heavy zone. They're not going to try and let you get behind them. So can Drake May take what is in front of him, give whatever the defense presents him? Is he able to take advantage of that and move the ball down the field consistently? And are the Chargers able to potentially get some takeaways on this inexperienced quarterback and give Justin Herbert enough bites at the apple to try and score to give the team this win? Because I think that has to be the Chargers' way to succeed in the playoffs in general is just give Justin Herbert the ball as much as you can. Try to protect him and let him try to make some explosive plays happen. Because as much as we talk about Justin Herbert and how he can be inconsistent in the playoffs, a large part of that is also the team around him and how they're unable to protect him. So, like, Justin Herbert has all the talent in the world. Just can he come through in a game like this to push his team forward past what has been a very good team in the AFC?
Yeah.
Is there anything specifically else you're looking for in this game?
I think my biggest thing is the Chargers receivers. I think they play a crucial part in Justin Herbert and being successful, especially if like one of the things is looking at the Chargers offensive line and wondering how much they can hold up. It's going to it also depends on how fast the receivers can get open. So I'm really looking at that as well.
This is a big Derwin James kind of game, man. Like I think if there's anybody that could that Jesse Minter should use as that chess piece, which he always does with Derwin James, but like to try and trick and cause a turnover for Drake May, I think he should be using Derwin James in some form or fashion to just screw everything up for that offense. He's so good, man. All right, let's move to the NFC. What is your NFC game of the week?
All right, my NFC game of the week. Honestly, like this one's I feel like all the NFC matchups are like, interesting in their own senses, but I feel like, okay, I'm going Eagles San Fran. I look at this and I say like this one I think is the most unpredictable of the matchups. I think, like Rams, Cardinals, like you can say like, all right, the Cardinals are vastly
Panthers.
Oh, Panthers. What did I say?
Yeah, you said Cardinals.
Oh, I
Like, they didn't even sniff the playoffs.
yeah,
It's all right. It's been 2.5 hours.
looking at
You got
I'm looking
grace.
at Carolina, and it just says CAR, and I'm like, oh yeah, like Cardinals. It yeah, 2 hours. Um, the Rams and Carolina. It's the Carolina's coming into this matchup like severely, just they need a lot of help.
Yeah,
Green Bay's coming into the playoffs just limping. And it literally felt like, and they said this during the broadcast of their last game, is that they were like, oh yeah, the Packers just hope to get out of this like relatively healthy. Like, this game could not end sooner for them, and it was
yeah,
crazy that like we're even during that game, like you're seeing players like Bo Melton went down for them, and I was like, Jesus, like, and every time they like they pan over to like, the sideline, and you could just see Matt LaFleur just like, oh my god, like another
yeah.
one. And I 100% like that's how I feel, and I think that yes, the Bears are coming to this game like with like youthful energy of like being it's our first time in the playoffs. But I still think it that like you mentioned it, having Ben Johnson, a steady hand who's been in the playoffs before, has been in this atmosphere, can kind of steady that ship, and really the culture is a big win for them. So those two matchups I feel like are pretty easy. And then you get to the Eagles and 49ers matchup. And there are so many varying factors here where I don't think it's conclusive enough to say you can choose a winner, because the Eagles' offensive inconsistencies and then the 49ers' consistencies as a whole, where it's like, all right, like we saw how your offense played last week against one of the best defenses. You're going up against another great defense in the Eagles. And then your defense as well has struggled, but then you look at the Eagles' offense, which has struggled, and it's like, all right, like part of me wants to say this is a game where I think we see the Eagles, flex and figure things out, and they do the thing where they get a good lead and then just stall out, and which I think if that's the case, the Eagles win. But I think there's a lot to that point where it's like it's not going to be able to hold in the playoffs, and I think we've seen that. And I'm not entirely sure that mindset and that mentality is going to be what can get them over the hump in a game like this. But then again, I think we severely underestimate how much Nick Sirianni doesn't give a shit, and we'll do it anyway. So I think like this, like like they say like there's some games that are like chess games, and like it's mental, like mind battles between two great coaches. And I do believe Shanahan is a phenomenal coach. This feels like, from the Eagles' perspective, it's like they play checkers, because it's like, all right, like like it's very simple in the sense that like we're gonna do exactly this, and if it goes wrong, we don't know what else to do. And I just think that's just how it is.
Yeah, it's like the Niners are playing chess, but they have half of their pieces, while the Eagles are playing checkers, but they just have like significantly more pieces.
Yes.
And I just like who you go with there. I just to me this is a big Eagles D line game, like defense in general, but D line game, because like Jalen Carter and them could really like fuck up this O line. They could really get after it. And I think Jalen Carter is a big player in this.
Yeah, and I think this is another matchup in itself for me is the 49ers receivers. Like I think like when you're going up against, well, we saw last week in the atrocities of the Eagles DBs. You're not going up against them anymore. You're going against Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. Like and Adoree Jackson as well. But that combined with the Eagles defensive line, and hell, the Eagles linebackers, like there isn't a weak spot on that Eagles defense besides like Adoree Jackson is the closest thing you can get to it. But I don't think you don't really have a game changer at receiver where you can say, yeah.
I think the safeties could get picked on a little bit.
That's fair.
Blankenship and Epps both. They've been playing fine, but this could be a game where George Kittle could do something against those safeties. But
even then, when
the Eagles are getting Kobe Dean back, though.
I was gonna say you have like great linebackers who can be able to kind of like at least control the middle of the field.
Yeah, my biggest worry with this game as an Eagles fan is that the defense will just. There's going to be one explosive play that'll turn the tides, and the Eagles offense will, like you said, they'll have either been playing too conservative or they just won't have been able to get off the ground quick enough, and then they're going to catch themselves in a spot where they're not able to catch up fast enough because their offense just stagnates. That's my biggest worry about it, because this offense is that good where it's like I'm not going to count out them being able to get an explosive play on the Eagles. Like Dory Jackson could mess up, or one of the safeties could mess up, and that right there just opens up a spot for whoever to make a play on us. So I don't know. Whatever. But all right, are you picking the Eagles?
I am.
They're favored.
I
mean, it's
am.
at home, but here's the thing too. I think a big factor in this is that it's in Philly, and
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts and this version of the Eagles has shown to be a very good playoff home team.
And especially against the 49ers at home.
A team they have a history with. And these teams do not like, outside of the Packers and Bears. This might be the two teams that hate each other the most out of all the matchups this week.
Yeah, we had the which Bosa brother was it that had beef with the Eagles fans outside the stadium? They were recording.
That was Joey, because
Joey.
he doesn't. Yeah, he
I get
doesn't
them.
really
I
know what the
always
playoffs
get them
are.
mixed up. Nick is the one that actually plays. Okay, yeah.
Well, it's funny because now this year Joey is in the playoffs with the Bills, and
Yeah.
Nick is injured with the Niners. Well, it's not funny, but you know what I mean. Okay. I mean, yeah. All right. So my game of the week is Rams Panthers. Shouldn't be a surprise too much. This might be my only time to pick the Panthers the rest of this year. So, look, man, the Panthers beat the Rams the last time they were out there, and that was a large part because of like some early picks they were able to get on Matt Stafford at the beginning of the game, and then they actually almost came back and won if it wasn't for Derek Brown making some insane play to win the game. So my thing of this is like, all right, Panthers, like, you did it once. You're probably walking into this game with some confidence, even though like you stumbled into the playoffs. But your first round matchup is a team that you've beat before, so that lends a little bit of confidence to your team right there. You also have sort of like the reckless abandonment like side of this with the Panthers, where they're like, screw it, like no one believes in us anyways. Like, fuck it, like you know what I mean? Like we'll just try everything and do everything we can to just screw with the Rams here and like be a heartbreaker. So curious with that, but then it's also like I want to see if Sean McVay's really got this team ready to go for the playoffs, which I believe he would. But they've struggled in the last few weeks of the regular season. I'm not going to count Week 18. So, but they were struggling before that to the point where Sean McVay was clearly pissed off. But they also get Devontae Adams back, so that helps your passing attack a lot. But we'll see what J.C. Horn and Michael Jackson can do, because they had a good game against these guys last time. Puka Nacua had to make like one of the catches of the year just to get down the field for them at times. So. I want to see this. I want to see if Derek Brown can continue to be as dominant as he has been and make Matthew Stafford uncomfortable. And I want to see. This is also just like hey, Bryce Young, T Mac, what do y'all got? Like, I want, and Dave Canales even like as the coach. Like, I want to see like how do y'all handle this pressure and what can you do in the playoffs?
This really is a like embrace your villain type of
Yeah.
mentality for the Panthers, where it's like nobody likes us, we don't care. Let's go out there and just fuck some shit up. Like let's show the people that we're better than what they think we are, and let's show the Rams not to underestimate us. And I think I think it'd be too drastic to say it's a trap game. But I do think it is a game where it's like you have to have a little bit more caution, because the Panthers have nothing to play for. Like they're
Nothing to lose.
Yeah, they're here early in the playoffs. So they're like, well, you know what? We might as well. It'd be fun to actually win a game while we're here. But for the Rams, it feels like it's a lot higher stakes, and it is like you don't know. Like every year Matthew Stafford gets older, you're going to lose a step potentially. So you don't know what that looks like in the future.
Yeah, and the last time they played the Panthers, it was like they had those huge fourth down plays, especially late in the game where Bryce Young was able to kill them. And it was like he was 2 for 2 for 76 yards and 2 touchdowns on fourth down when he played the Rams. So, and they were both like deep, like long, like never like one was like they were both kind of like crossers and going down the right sideline. Like, are they going to be able to find something like that again? Like, I don't know, like. So, because like part of it with the Panthers last time they played it was like everyone's like a little fluky, like they had like the picks that Matthew Stafford wasn't throwing until then, and then like the fourth down plays. But I don't know, like I want to see like have the Panthers evolved and learned even more since then, and are the Rams just going to kind of see them like no, like we're going to little bro you and we're going to move on to the next round. But yeah, I don't know. I just want to see if the Rams can kind of just get their shit together. I want to see if the Panthers can be a heartbreaker. All right. Did we talk about your okay? Do you have any unit matchup you want to talk about for the NFC? You're muted.
Professionals.
Yeah, and it's crazy that he gave me a message trying to talk.
You did really?
Yes, I am. I am trying to talk. Thank you. Yeah, I'll use this as an opportunity to bring up the final matchup we didn't talk about in NFC, which is Green Bay and Chicago. Like, yes,
Okay, wait. Because I have them for my unit matchup too.
Okay.
Okay. I want to see if we have the same one.
Okay.
Because I have the Packers pass defense versus the Bears passing offense.
I went in a different direction. I went the more obvious one, which was the passing offense versus the Bears passing defense.
So we're just opposite.
Yes. And yes, like, because I think like it's very easy to say like, oh, and I've said it, like the one thing about the Packers is that like they're coming into this game injured, like that is very clearly like the issue. But I do think like, yes, like it'd be very easy to say like I need to see your passing defense and I need to see like what you can get out of them still. But I think what they can control, which they can't control injuries and they can't control, like they can say, all right, we need players to step up, but they can control Jordan Love having or trying to have a good game and setting him up for success. And excuse me. I think to me that's something that I'm looking at and saying, all right, like can we see Jordan Love play at a high level in the playoffs, and especially against a team like the Bears. So I really want to see the Bears DBs and the safeties because like they're ball hawks. Like Sean Wright has well, the lead interceptions of the season, and they are like they're going to make things difficult for Jordan Love, and I want to see how he's able to handle it. And another test on these young receivers from the Packers. Like we've seen Christian Watson come back. We've seen Romeo Doubs. We've seen like they have a couple other guys. Matthew Golden hasn't really done much his rookie year. Like if there's any time for them to show flashes that like any of the receivers are I don't say worth keeping around because they're all still young, but showing flashes of saying yes, you are worth continuing to develop. This is the time now, and Jordan Love, it's the time to step up and say like yes, we're injured. I'm doing my best. I'm doing everything I can to make sure this team is able to still win games.
Yeah, and to go with what you're talking about, like the Bears defense, yes, they lead the league in like interceptions like that, like especially on those like explosive like attempts, but they also allow like the most like explosive, or they're like second when it comes to allowing like explosive plays in the league. So it's kind of like a boom or bust kind of mentality with their defense, where it's like we're gonna play aggressive, we're gonna try and get after you, and we're gonna try and force these turnovers. But at the same time, that's where the Packers and maybe like a Christian Watson can take advantage of that.
I would say especially those Packers receivers are speedy, so
yeah,
it's going to be interesting.
And look, Kevin Byard, he's getting all these interceptions, but he's also older and not as fast. So if you can put him in any kind of action and get him out of place, like you can make something happen. And look, we saw how this game went last time they played each other. It was an insane fucking game that ended with one of the coolest moments of the season. So I'm curious. But then, yeah, for me on my side with it, it's the Bears passing offense versus the Packers passing defense. First of all, just Caleb Williams in general. Want to see him in his first action in the playoffs and how well he handles the pressure and just how well he does in general. And his first ever playoff game being against the Packers is kind of like really cool. Like that, like this, like probably what will end could end up being like the best, because it's a low bar. What could end up being the best Bears quarterback of all time, like having his first playoff game against the Packers is, I don't know, just a really cool moment. But I want to see if the Packers can like put a shell on those explosive plays that like him and like DJ and all those guys were able to get on them previously in the games that they played against each other. But also, like what does the how does the run game affect all this? Are they going to try and sell out to stop Swift and Monangai, who have been playing well enough? And we know Ben Johnson is all about running the ball at times to set up the stuff. But I think, when you're in a game like this, you're going to have to rely on a guy like Caleb Williams to just make those plays to Colston Loveland, Cole Kmet, like all these, like Rome Odunze, I think is supposed to be back for this game. So I'm curious to see how he does for them. So, I just want to see like McKinney and all these guys, like how are they going to be able to stop this passing offense? And if they do, does that mean that the Bears running offense is good enough to get them where they need to go? Yeah. All right. Do you want to wait? Did we not talk about one of the games? I feel like
we hit everything.
We hit everything. Okay.
Yeah.
Player matchup. You already talked about yours, I'm pretty sure.
I really didn't like. I think like it's very easy to say like very much tied to the unit matchups. Like I think like for me it was all the same. If I I'm gonna put myself on the spot and choose now anyway, just to fit the name of the game.
You want me to do mine first?
Yes.
Okay. AFC was pretty easy. We kind of already talked about it. I had Stingley versus DK. Stingley is, in my mind, if he's not the best quarterback this year, he's top 3 for 100%. So seeing him go against DK, who's going to be fresh in this game, could be a lot of fun to watch. And then my NFC one, kind of a fun
I don't
one.
like how you giggled. That can't be good.
I have Patullo versus expectations.
Yeah, fair enough.
I feel like self-explanatory. We've talked enough about that guy and how he's been running this team.
That guy.
Or the offense, at least. So, yeah, man, like you guys talk all this stuff about how like everything's fine. You're trying to tell the fans and all the media like it's okay, like we're figuring it out, we're gonna do it. We run the ball sometimes just to run it. Who cares, right? It's all fun because we have all these players. Okay, well, we'll see what it does. All right, I know the 49ers defense isn't great, so is this gonna be like when you played the Raiders and the Commanders and you were able to get something going, or is this like gonna be like when you played against the Bills and it looked like ass? So I don't. Part of me is just like, all right, Patullo, like, is there something like, is this your moment to prove to everybody that you can do it? Is this when it all clicks, or is this going to be more of the same, and we're all going to be running you out of town here in a couple of weeks?
If this is the time where it all clicks, I don't know what I would do. If
It'll be one of the happiest times I've ever been wrong.
what I could just imagine like the chaos that would follow. Can you imagine like Kevin Patullo takes the media stand after and goes, "I told y'all."
No, because then the response would be like, well, where's this been all year?
Yeah.
So I honestly, like, I think at this point he's in a
I'm dreaming.
damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation. Because even if you do have the success and we see stuff where it's like, oh, where did that come from? More under center, more of these crossing routes. Like you're actually getting AJ Brown into like action where you're trying to get him the ball, which, you know, kind of weird that the last week of the season we're putting Devontae Smith out there so he can get 1,000 yards and we're scheming up him getting touches, but we can't do that when we play our full starters. But, you know, whatever. So I don't know. This was more of just like a fun Eagles one, but yeah, that's what I had.
All right. NFC. I'll say this to make up for my atonement earlier of not saying any difference makers on the Panthers defense. I'm going to go J.C. Horn and either Puka or Devontae Adams. I assume Puka. It makes the most sense. But we'll see. Solely because Puka could wreck this game for them. Very simple. If Puka's not contained, this game will turn into the ugliness that we think it is and what it's projected to be. And in the AFC, there's a couple that I could go with. I'm gonna double down on a point that I made earlier, and it's similar to your player matchup in the Houston-Pittsburgh thing, and it's really going with the opposite. I'm gonna go Nico Collins versus Joey Porter Jr. I assume, or whatever, because Nico Collins, and I think like he kind of went under the radar this season, considering just the Texans' offense as a whole not being up to standard because of the offensive line really holding it back. But I still think like he's one of the better receivers in the league when he's given the opportunity and the option. And what better stakes to do it than in the playoffs, and especially get to get a good Pittsburgh defense. There's no better time. So
yeah, if there's a time for Joey Porter to etch his name in Steelers legends, it's a game like this.
Yeah, and part of me wanted to say like, oh, you have those two young rookies, but I think it just may be too much to put on them right now.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything we didn't touch on that we needed to with the playoffs?
We covered everything.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking for nearly 3 hours. I hope
yeah, I'm damn sure hope we did.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. Obviously, like very much looking forward to watching these games. But then it's like I'm always curious of like after the games, like seeing like what we saw from these teams and what maybe signs for like what they're going to be like going forward in the playoffs, right? Like, look, because like we said, this is a very weird playoff, so you never know what's going to happen. We've seen weirder stuff, right? The Packers right now are 9-7-1, not too dissimilar from what like the Giants did when they made road runs in the playoffs, right? Where it's like you kind of stumble in, but you're able to go on a run, and that's the thing with playoffs in any sports, man. It's just who can get hot, right? It's just who can stay healthy and be the most consistent as you go through, and who can perform under pressure. And some of these players that we've seen in situations before, and they've played good or bad, and a lot of these players we haven't really seen in these situations a lot with expectations and the pressure on them, right? Like a Drake May, a Caleb Williams, like guys like that, Bryce Young even. But then you've got guys like Josh Allen, Matthew Stafford, Hurts. Like even Purdy, I'll put in there. Like Purdy definitely is in there. I shouldn't say like he's 100% is in there as well. Of like these experienced guys where it's like, can you be consistent and do it again? Right? The Eagles are 5-0 in the playoffs at home with Jalen Hurts. Can they continue that trend, or will this be a unceremonious end to their season? So things like that. It's just playoffs are here, man, and I'm crazy excited to watch these games this weekend.
I am too.
All right, I think that'll be it for us. Quick shout out to the Sixers. We didn't coordinate it, but I'm wearing my Joel Embiid shirt, and Jay was kind enough to wear a Sixers hat today. He's not changing allegiances, even though his team's been losing.
Very much still an OKC fan. I just I like hats. Now that I have shorter hair,
I like hats. I like hats too.
I don't have plenty of I'm used to my hair being so long that it's like when it's short, I like I can actually do stuff with it. So that's where my head's at with that. So.
I keep my hair short because I got too much gray showing, so I got to mask it while I can.
I don't want to bring it up, but it is noticeable.
All right. Okay. All right. 31 now. Okay, it's allowed.
Fair enough.
Damn. I'm old.
We'll give it to you.
All right. Thank you everybody for listening. Excited for the playoffs. If you have any comments or questions you want us to answer or anything you feel like we didn't touch on, please let us know. We'll try and get to that if we can. If you're upset enough, but. We'll see you all next week after the playoffs. Can't wait to watch and review these games with everybody, and we'll talk some basketball soon with y'all too because I was wearing the shirt for a reason, all right? And Embiid is, I'm not going to say he's back, but he's playing extremely well. So, and shout out VJ Edgecombe for being prime Michael Jordan in clutch time. Do you want to make any quick basketball shout outs?
I want Ludor off my team. No, I'm joking.
Damn.
No, I'm joking. Well, maybe I'm not. I don't know. I'm still on the fence. No, things will be okay. It's an 82 game season. You can't shake me. I've been through worse as a fan. So
yeah, so sad. The OKC franchise has been through so much. Yeah, so terrible. Yep. Okay. Whatever. Let me know when you go through the process, dickhead. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
I'm just messing with you. All right. Thank you, everybody. We will see you again next week. Appreciate it.